Good evening. Good evening and welcome to this, the May 8th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I now call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all of the members... I'm on. Yeah. Just crank up the volume a little bit there. Okay. Yes. Let the roll call show that all of the council members are present and accounted for except for Vice Mayor Steven Spadovsky, who is excused. Ask that you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Check in with the city attorney. Was there any reportable action in the closed session?
No, there was not.
Very good, thank you. On to proclamations and presentations. This is to confirm the advisory body appointments and reappointments. Beautification Committee, reappointment of Susan Lewis. Historic Preservation Commission, reappointment of Jess Caskey. Library Board of Trustees, Wendy Graber, and reappointment of Art Pontow. The Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission, adult member, the appointment of Casey Damitz, and Livermore Housing Authority, Maureen Ham. Do I have a motion to accept the appointments?
Moved.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Warner. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? It passes unanimously. Moving on to, oh yes, oath of office. So we will have Wendy Graber, Casey Damitz, and Maureen Ham. Are they here?
Yep. Two.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. To the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. And the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties. Discharge the duty upon which I'm about to enter. Upon which I'm about to enter. Thank you so much. Best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, and thank you for stepping up to dedicate your time to serving the city, so thank you. On to some of the fun stuff. 2.02 is the presentation of the Water Awareness Month poster contest winners. As many of you probably know out there, I spent my career as a water chemist, so water is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. So the City of Livermore Water and the California Water Service agencies believe that it is important to continue raising awareness of water conservation practices through art and through creativity. The 11th Annual Water Awareness Poster Contest, co-sponsored by the City of Livermore Water and the California Water Service agencies, invited all 3rd and 4th grade students in the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District to showcase their creative talents and illustrate their best water conservation idea to erase the waste with an original poster design. Participating students were eligible to win prizes and the opportunity for their artwork to be displayed at the City Center Library and at the 2017 Livermore Wine Country Downtown Festival. More than 150 students enthusiastically participated in the contest and shared their ideas about saving water every day. We are pleased to announce the 3 finalists of the 2017 Water Awareness Poster Contest selected from each water service area. So what I'm going to do is I'll announce the 3 winners from the city of Livermore, and then announce the 3 winners from the California Water Service here, and then I can step down and present the awards. But for the city of Livermore, the 3rd place was Tejas Huara. The 2nd place was Isaac Cortez, and 1st place was Sydney Aguilar. The California Water Service winners: 3rd place Alessandra Puentes, 2nd place Juliana Morales, and 1st place Yoselin Delgado. So that. Isaac Cortez. Here. And Sydney Aguilar. You'll have the 3 winners, and then we have Alessandra Fuentes. Congratulations. And we'll get a cool group shot. We can move up to the dais in a moment. Juliana Morales. Is Juliana here? Nope. And Yoselin Delgado. Nope. Okay. Well, in that case, show your posters, and we'll get a group shot here. Come on, parents. It's okay. All right. Here's your chance.
Is everyone ready? Good job.
All right, everybody? Have we got all the pictures? Okay, great.
Seating.
Few here. Okay, moving on to the Citizen Forum.
What about the children's museum?
That's they're not here.
Oh, okay.
So we're rescheduling the Children's Museum. And so the agenda shows that there will be a presentation from the Children's Museum that's going to be rescheduled. So if you were here for that, come back another time. Moving on to the Citizens Forum, the City Council can neither take action nor deliberate on anything that's brought up during the Citizens Forum. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and this is for items that are not on the agenda. So with that, we've got about 15 cards. So with that, Tristan Clark, John Youngblood, and Tom Manger. Tristan Clark. Oh, there we go.
I'll start. My name is Tom Manger. I'm here tonight to request that the council at a future meeting put an agenda item to discuss the addition of additional hangar space at the airport, but outside the secure fenced area. Late last year, I started a Boy Scout program called an Aviation Explorer Post. We teach youth age 14 to 20 about careers in aviation and aerospace. We currently have 25 youth with a mix of interests and an approximate 50-50 gender ratio. Last month, due to interest, we started an Aviation Explorer Club that serves youth age 10 to 13. We now have 6 sixth grade girls. All of them want to be pilots.
That's great.
We are renting hangar space inside the secure area of the Livermore Airport, and our youth are able to use a flight simulator, build rockets, work on programmable quadcopters, and more importantly, interact with the many pilots and plane builders at the airport. There's been very positive reception to the youth being there, and we're looking to expand our programs. Unfortunately, our existing hangar space presents logistical and expansion issues, so we're here tonight to open a dialogue about new hangar space outside the secure fenced area. In particular, we would like the council to schedule time regarding the possibility of building new hangars where the old terminal building now exists. Our proposal is that the old building be torn down and one or more new hangars go up in its place. We will seek private funding for this activity, but we need time to execute. My hope is that the council will add this as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manger. John Youngblood, Tristan Clark, Bob Burton. You are?
I'm Tristan Clark.
Okay, very good.
Good evening. My name is Tristan Clark. I'm currently a student pilot at Livermore. I am on the board, and I'm the newsletter editor for our local EA chapter, Experimental Aircraft Association, 663, and I'm representing the Livermore Airport for the extermination of the jet on the stick. I have over 200 hours of flight time. I've been flying for over 8 years. I currently fly a Cirrus SR-22, and most don't know is aviation is slowly dying, and our decrease of pilots is dramatically decreasing, and which means that a program like the Explorer Post is really going to be helpful for getting more pilots, one, into the local aviation community, but two, more revenue for our local flight schools, Red Sky Aviation, Attitude Aviation, and Flying Particles Incorporated, in which, if we do get more pilots, like I said, it's going to bring more revenue into our local EA chapters or local flight schools and things like that. When we do build this, if we can build this new facility, we'll be able to not only build an aircraft, but teach local students in the area about aeronautical engineering, aerospace engineering, and getting their POTS license and further careers in aviation. So I would like to thank you for my time, and you have a good evening.
Thanks, Mr. Clark. John Youngblood, Bob Burton, and Gene Wheeler.
Good evening. Name is John Youngblood. I'm a builder, owner, pilot of a four-place aircraft here at the Livermore Airport. Been here for many, many years, and I've been very privileged to be a part of the program for students that was recently talked about, and it's turned out to be a really great activity for the youngsters to come right here on campus. We have a pilot who offers his hangar to us. We have to clear out the hangar, of course, get all our equipment in, all of our tooling, everything gets set up for each one of these sessions. And it truly is sometimes an exercise in trying to ensure safety in a situation like that. Everybody's, right here at the airport. And we really look forward to the continuation of this. It's an advanced opportunity for students to come and learn the aviation business. Just as you heard, that we have a real need not only for pilots, but for aviation mechanics on the field, especially inspectors. So we really need to get this activity available for those that may not want to go on to college after high school, but have an opportunity for a real good skill set here at the airport. A second item I just want to mention is in regard to the airplane is planned to be hoisted up in that area, possibly. I did spend 27 years or more with the Air Force, and I saw lots of jets on sticks all over the world in many bases. In most cases, it takes a significant number of people and a dedicated team to maintain that facility. And those that are left in disrepair are really an eyesore for the city and for the community surrounding them. Those that I've seen that happen to, it's really a disappointment. I hate to see that possibly occur here, and it would be a real eyesore for the city. And in place of it would be a great opportunity for the youngsters to have a place to learn and study aeronautics here at Livermore. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Youngblood. Bob Burton, Gene Wheeler, Pete Sandu.
Good evening. I'm Bob Burton. I'm here to speak on behalf of support of the out of the secure area building that's being proposed. I know that when I was 12 years old, I wandered into a radio shop in town that I lived in, and the people were friendly and let me see what was going on. I learned about two-way radios for taxi cabs and things like that. I came back to the shop often because it was there, because it was permanent, and because it was accessible. It was also very friendly. And that sparked my interest in electronics, which became my lifelong career. When I was 15, a neighbor built a Radio Shack in his backyard for his son, who was my age. I spent a lot of time there because it was friendly, it was accessible, and it was always there. I ended up getting my amateur radio license because of that. When I was 19, I found my way to an aircraft hobby shop in a surplus Air Force Base hangar, and I learned a lot about aircraft maintenance and how airplanes worked. And I spent a lot of time there because it was accessible 24/7. I eventually got my private pilot's license, and that was because there happened to be a flying club right next door in the next hangar. But it was the hobby club that drew me to the area. The message I bring is how important I think it is to have a permanent brick and mortar place for inspiration and guidance and opportunity for young people. And to be effective, I think it has to be permanent. I think it has to be friendly. I think it has to be outside the secure area to be accessible to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Gene Wheeler, Pete Sandu, and Dave Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read this proposal, it's been a long time since I've been this excited. Sometime nearby, it'll be 61 years when I got involved in a STEM program. Most of you know it as the military. But there's elements of truth to that. I spent a lot of time in the military, electronic education, guided missiles, inertia guidance, and the like. It served me well after the military. It serves me well now. I do have an aircraft at the Livermore Airport. But what really is exciting is the generations of kids that can learn in a very constructive environment, led by people that know technology, but know kids as well. I served a long time as an aviation merit badge counselor in the Boy Scouts. And what I'm looking for is an opportunity for my kids and grandkids, which are really nearby, for them to join in a program such as this in an outside educational environment with the kind of program that I'm witnessing here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wheeler. Pete Sandu and Dave Anderson, Daryl Ray. Good to see you, Pete.
Hi, good evening. I'm Pete Sandu, and I run the Five Rivers Aviation at the airport. Tonight, you'll hear from a group of us, and they're scattered throughout the room. Hold up your signs. Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
Plenty of them. I mean, and you've heard we're looking to propose building a youth STEM learning center at the location of the abandoned airport terminal building. While the current plan of replacing the building with a monument of a jet on the stick is wildly unpopular, there's an overwhelming support, as you can see, to leverage the vast base of aeronautical knowledge, expertise, and experience amongst the tight-knit aviation community at the Livermore Airport. What a lot of people don't know is Livermore is host to the third largest community of home-built aircraft in the world. There is a wealth of resources amongst the makers and builders here. It's a rare and valuable resource, and it should be prized, and it begs to be leveraged. Many of us aviation geeks get into trouble of talking incessantly at home about aviation technology. So if there's actually a willing audience of future aviators that's willing to soak up that knowledge, it would be a significant benefit to both the mentors and the students. It'll make the youth smarter and the community stronger. It's a great way for many of us to connect with some of the talented neighbors that live in our great town. There's so much passion for this idea that many aviators around the airport have stepped up to offer support. We have Coast Engineering, Peterson Caterpillar, CBC Metal Buildings, Bonetti Plumbing, Tucknot Electric, and of course, Five Rivers Aviation. All of these companies, and we hope some more, have already committed resources that would substantially supply all of the labor and much of the materials to complete the job of tearing down that old terminal building and putting up a brand new metal building in its place. And we just hope that you consider the long-term positive impact that this project may have on both the youth and the community of Livermore. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dave Anderson. My wife was unable to be here tonight, so I'll speak some for her. She is the Young Eagles coordinator for Experimental Aircraft Association 663. It's a program to get kids interested in aviation, science, math, and technology. Tristan Clark was here. He already spoke. Nora Manger is here. Those two youngsters, we flew them in our airplane when they were first 8. Both of them in very short time are going to be pilots and be branching out in related aviations. Last year, we flew 146 kids out of our chapter. The year before that, we flew 206. All of these kids have an interest and a path forward. It keeps them interested in important subjects and careers. The company that designs our kit aircraft is Van's Aircraft. They have a program where they sponsor schools and youth organizations that like to build aircraft to teach kids about how to put things together, how to fly them. Unfortunately, you have to have a home for projects like that. It takes a lot of space. And we'd like to express our interest in supporting building this facility to keep kids out of trouble. There's a picture that floats around on Facebook, and it's pretty much true if you ask the kids that are here. It says, teach your kids to fly. They won't have money for drugs. Thank you.
Okay. Daryl Ray, Gary Kos, Jim Berry.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Ray. I am a member of the Experimental Aircraft Association Chapter 663 here at Livermore Airport. I am also a pilot, an experimental aircraft builder, and have been a hangar attendant at Livermore Airport for nearly 9 years. I am also a biologist, retired entrepreneur, so I am keenly aware of how important STEM programs, the STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs are for education in our future, our children's future, and our grandchildren's future. We have an opportunity at the airport to bring together pilots, educators, engineers, and scientists to provide STEM educational opportunities to our area's youth. I support replacing the old terminal building with a new building. I believe this can be achieved at a very reasonable cost with the help of enthusiastic airport tenants, aviation groups, such as local EAA 663, and other flying clubs and outside groups as well. Now more than ever, we need to introduce our young people to the opportunities in aviation, including science, technology, engineering, and math. I believe that if you give your airport community a voice and a chance, we could make this exciting opportunity for our youth a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Gary Kos, Jim Berry, George Bass.
Yes, my name's Gary Kos, Pacific Coast Engineering. I'm all in favor of this project. They call it a jet on a stick. I call it nothing but a giant bird perch, and that's all that's going to be out there. I just think we need a place for the kids to go. I realize this is the wine country, but since these young kids can't drink wine yet, they definitely need a place to go. I have a hangar myself at the airport. I'm pushing 70 years old, trying to learn how to fly, and God, I wish I was that young to try again, because the brain just doesn't allow you to think as well as some of these young kids. And there again, I just think it's a great project that we should go forward with for these young kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Berry, George Bass, John Stein.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Jim Berry. I'm the president of Robot Garden, the 501c3 that is sponsoring the Explorer Post. And so we're very interested in helping grow the community at the airport. We've tapped into, obviously, a very impassioned community about youth in the aviation field. And so I want to just express our support. I've worked closely with Tom as we've worked with this community, and so it's been very gratifying to see that they're very interested in the topic and want to move forward with supporting youth at the airport. So our typical robot garden activity is around adult robotics, and so we're looking to leverage the community at the airport to build the youth aviation program that would also have some aspects to marry with our robotics program and help the youth learn about innovation and technology and provide themselves a hobby that may lead to a good profession at some point. Thank you.
It's only because I'm familiar with Robot Garden, because that facility is heavily subsidized. Just a quick question. This is really the first I've heard of this.
Right.
So where is the program funding and the construction funding proposed to come from?
That has been with Pete Sandu and the airport community, and so we're going along as a partner to explore the options and see what's available.
This is the first we've heard of this. So
Right.
And so
how
long it's been working.
The Explorer Post is 6 months old at this point, as far as having established the paperwork, getting our background checks done, doing all the work to make it legal for us to have the kids come to the airport. And so we've established a facility for them to meet as a club, and now we want to expand that. And so the airport community has been very vocal and eager to get involved because they want to see youth growth at the airport. And so we're there to support them and do whatever we can to help grow that activity.
Oh, okay. Thank you. As I said, this is the first we've heard of it.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thanks.
George Bass, John Stein, Sam Toy.
Good afternoon, or I should say, good evening, Livermore Council. Excuse me. I am also a pilot in Livermore and the owner of a vintage aircraft. It's kind of unusual in a way because it was an aircraft that was built by the same people, North American, that built the B-52s and a lot of the World War II aircraft. And of those, mine was owned by the military, and kids really enjoy seeing it because it was used as a drone back in the mid-50s. And so anyway, I support this endeavor to get the education. We are blessed with an airport that has a tremendous amount of history, old aircraft, and knowledge of, pilots, that have flown them. So, if moving forward with this, I think you could all pat yourself on the back and go home. And if this becomes a reality, to say, "I'm glad we did it," than the wish we had. Thank you.
What do you fly?
I fly a North American Navion,
Oh, okay.
and I display with the bombers, and it was one of 5 that was converted to a drone. So these kids will look at that, and I have pictures of that, and they say, this thing actually flew by itself. So basically, I have the only aircraft in Livermore, or I should say at the Livermore Airport, that's got more time on it than the pilot does.
We've also got one of only 8 flying Yakovlevs down there, too, in the world. John Stein, Sam Toy, and Nancy Bankhead.
John Stein, 1334 Cathy Court. An issue will soon be coming before you that could have a significant impact on the wine country. With increasingly stringent wastewater requirements, Concannon Vineyards, the wine group, is asking to connect to the Livermore sewer system. Livermore has a policy of requiring annexation to get sewer services. The staff is proposing extending the city boundaries along a strip of land extending from the southern end of Almond Avenue all the way to Tesla Road, about 80 acres. The city also has a policy to keep the city's boundaries compact and consolidated. And the South Livermore plan, when it was developed, was designed to keep urban development within the city and agricultural development in the county. Currently, the southern urban growth boundary and the city boundaries are effectively the same. This would change that. It would extend the strip out from the urban growth boundary, but it would be city property, but still in the South Livermore plan. There will undoubtedly be more requests from other wineries and event centers in the wine country for sewer services. This particular initial request could set a precedent for having a patchwork of city and county control over the wine country and the area south of the urban growth boundary. With changes in ownership, the city could also be asked at some point to serve churches, schools, resorts. This is a major precedent, and I think should be looked at not as a single request, but as a long-term plan. So I would urge the city to conduct a workshop with representatives of interested groups, the wine growers, Friends of Livermore, the Sierra Club, some of the remaining members who helped develop the South Livermore plan, to investigate the long-term effects of this precedent-setting action on the future of the South Livermore Valley plan. I think that there's an advantage to keeping a bright boundary between the city and agriculture and not extending agricultural uses into the city. I mean, the city would have then different planning requirements, fuel storage, truck parking, a whole range of issues, unreinforced masonry buildings, parking, street repair, special events. And this needs more thought than just looking at the individual request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Sam Toy, Nancy Bankhead, Eileen Manger.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your time. I am actually here also to speak in support of the STEM project out at the Livermore Airport. One of the things that it isn't just about aviation. It's really a facility for STEM in general. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, gee, how are they getting it done? If you were here while Pete was trying to get the FBO up and off the ground, you know how tenacious and resourceful he can be about getting things done. So we have lots of people here to help us, and so I don't think that the reluctance for funding will be an issue. We will make that happen. And as I say, you have lots of people here tonight. I'll keep it brief. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nancy Bankhead, Eileen Manger, Paulina Umansky.
Hi. We did the parking lot for the 4-H State Exchange this weekend, and it was pretty good success. We did really good on Saturday, and it was shocking that Sunday didn't do as well, but it was more locals that came in than people from out of town came in on Saturday. At least that's what it seemed like. But the odd thing that happened was there's no parking downtown, so people had to pay to park. And people were paying $10. It was a donation. Well, it wasn't really a donation, but they had to pay it. They were paying to go to the movies. They were paying $10 to park in our lot to go to the movies. People don't care. If there's no parking, they will pay for the parking. If you charge $5 to go into our public free parking, it would help get more parking. It would help maintain that structure, and people are not going to gripe about $5 or $10 to park. So they didn't this weekend. They didn't.
I'm hearing some discord here.
An undercurrent.
Okay, thank you. Eileen Manger, Paulina Umansky, and Nora Manger. I see a dynasty here.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eileen Manger. I am Tom Manger's wife. I'm Nora Manger's mother. Nora's been in this aviation club now for since it started. She has 15 hours done towards her pilot's license. And we want to expand this program to build a hangar for the youth programs. And it was mentioned earlier that our aging pilot population is going to be retiring soon. And it's not just that they're going to retire other people are going to step up to the plate. There's really very, very few people that are going to be stepping up to the plate to fly our planes in our country. And the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about the looming pilot shortage. And it's commonly attributed to a wave of retirements, regulatory changes, and industry growth. It's been described as potentially the worst in half a century. An airline industry consultant estimates that 18% of the pilots flying for major U.S. airlines in 2014 through now 17 will retire by 2020, and 3/5 will retire by 2030. Last year, Boeing calculated that the world will need more than 500,000 new pilots over the next 2 decades. So this program here is something that, you know, the reason you get pilots is because kids get interested in becoming pilots. You know, you don't really often see a 30-year-old that suddenly wants to fly a jet plane. It starts by children getting the love of this at an early age. And what better place for these kids at our local airport? Not every kid gets to pedal down a road and go to an airport as good as ours. You know, they start off by helping to wash the planes, and you know, that was what they had for a long time. But this program here, there's so much that they're going to be offered. And this is going to be a great shame if this valuable prime location is not used correctly. So I am all for this program receiving these, getting these hangars that they require. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Paulina Umansky, Nora Manger, and Philip Cameron Smith.
Good evening. I'm Paulina Umansky, and I'm with the Aviation Explorer Post 997. I'm a volunteer at the Chabot Space and Science Center and a part of the engineering program at Amador. And I would love to expand our space so we can get more kids involved in STEM and aviation activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora Manger.
My name is Nora. I'm 15, and I have about 15 hours over at the Livermore Airport. I go to the airport as much as possible, and I help get other kids into the airport with the Explorer Post and soon the Explorer Club. We would just love to have another space because we just bounce around from the hangars, ask to help, clean the planes, and it's so much fun, even cleaning the planes. And it's just such a fun experience, and I don't want other kids to miss out on it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Philip Cameron Smith, Bob Tucknott, Bruce Anderson.
Hi, I'm Dr. Philip Cameron Smith. I'm also here to support the STEM area at the airport. I'm a long-time Livermore resident. I am also an atmospheric scientist at one of our labs, and I'm also part of the Civil Air Patrol, which is an auxiliary to the Air Force, and it has 3 missions: aerospace, education being one of those 3, the other 2 being emergency services and a cadet program. Although I'm part of those things, I'm here speaking for myself. The closest CAP, Civil Air Patrol Squadron, is actually currently in Hayward. So I go there every Tuesday night and teach aerospace education to those cadets there. And my son goes with me. So there's definitely a real need and desire to have aerospace education. And it is a great way to encourage kids either into aerospace or into STEM, both of which are important things that I think have helped to make our country great and strong. And it seems to me that with the aerospace education being not just within the squadron for the Civil Air Patrol, it's also a mission to reach out to the whole country in every community, every forum which we can find the opportunity to reach out to teach aerospace education, not just to kids, but mainly to our youth. So it seems to me that this opportunity here to have this space to reach out would be a great opportunity for myself in the work that I do, reaching out to STEM and youth in aerospace education. I'll also note that when I go to Hayward, I end up spending some of my money on local businesses when I go there, and so to the extent that we attract additional people in, that will be additional benefits to the city. And of course it's very close to the freeway. It's a good, very easy access to people from other places. So it's a good place to attract people from other places to the benefit of our city. So I think it'll be of great benefit to the youth of our city and others as well. So it's good all around. So I support the STEM area at the Livermore Airport. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bob Tucknott, Bruce Anderson, Russ Greenlaw. Yes, Bob, what's going on?
I thought you lost my card.
Heavens, no, you just got here late. We go through these in chronological order as they
Right.
come in.
Livermore Airport
Yes.
is the second best asset the city of Livermore has. You're lucky to have it. The labs I'm going to count as number one, but
I thought you were going to count the
You were
council.
number one.
Well, come on.
You said the council was.
But that airport flies money in, scientists in, it's flown a lot in to support those labs. On top of that, that airport does a lot of public benefit flying that no one's aware of.
Not the least of which is the Angel flights.
Yes, Angel Flight is one that's close to my heart, as well as the Sheriff's Department's putting a substation out there for their work. CAP that does search and rescue. Eventually, we'll probably have some firefighting units out there also. So the point is that we have an opportunity. We're going to make you a deal you can't turn down. We're going to put in a building. It won't cost the city. And that's the best deal you're ever going to get. And that building is going to train and get young kids excited about aviation. I tell you what, people don't realize is who trained all the pilots that are flying commercial aircraft, flying you to your favorite vacation spot throughout the world? The military. You know what? The military is not training pilots anymore. They're training drone drivers, and they're working out of Colorado Springs, flying these drones all over the world. Eventually, 15, 20 years, we're not going to have pilots in a lot of those aircraft, very few. So they're not going to train them. So who's going to train them? We're going to train them. We're going to train them by having a place for the kids to come, get interested, and turn on. I just read in today's magazine, Sport Aviation, that the 2 millionth kid just got soloed and on their way to their private pilot. 2 million in the United States. That's a lot. And that's where we're going to get our future pilots. And right now, all we've got flying in these airports are push-button pilots. They're just pushing buttons and putting in flight plans. You know why they're there? They're there in case something goes wrong. They don't really fly the airplanes. The airplanes are on all autopilot. They're going to go all the way down to micro-landing systems to land themselves. I fly a lot, quite a bit, more than most general aviation pilots. I'm a tenant of the airport, both in a hangar and with my office and business. Also, I'm a co-owner in an antique aircraft, a 1941 vintage aircraft by de Havilland that flew actually as a spotter aircraft made in England out of World War II. But in any event, we have some great, great airplanes in Livermore. We have some great talent, and well, you can't replace that. I go to a lot of airports. By far, without a doubt, Livermore is the best. It is the best landing systems, the best ILS, the best everything. It's over the hill, so the fog bank stops at the hill, and Hayward has to eat that. But in any event, we're lucky. We got great climate, great airport, great everything. I just want you to think about what a great asset it would be to have that building with all these kids there in the STEM program. You could be proud of that, just given the go ahead and let us build it. Thank you.
Well, and thank you for all the stuff, all the work that you do for the community, Bob. Thank you. Bruce Anderson, Russ, and Christina Teslick.
Mr. Mayor, City Councils, residents of Livermore. Like you, I just got an email on this maybe 4 days ago, and pretty much my notes here, I think I'm just going to toss. I started 37 years ago. They asked me to do a presentation at Expanding Your Horizons because they were desperate for presenters, and that was a thing at Mills College for young ladies, and I was the wrong role model, but I did a thing on photogrammetry and remote sensing, counting wildlife habitat from aircraft, from satellite platforms, etc. I went to ESL when I got out of college. They laughed at me. ESL is Electromagnetic Systems Labs. I got my first job at Earth Data, which was a photogrammetric engineering firm that was mapping the lab. That led into a position at the lab, and 37 years later, here I am, and you're stuck with me. For washing aircraft, I have been underneath Stu Eberhardt's P-51 Mustang. I asked him, hey, would you like me to get the bottom of your aircraft? He just smiled. There is nothing like looking at the bottom of a P-51 Mustang when you're at the tail, blue sky, cumulus clouds, aluminum, gorgeous. I was going to talk a little bit about science. For young ladies and men, well, for young ladies, how many women are carrier qualified in the F-14 Tomcat? The answer is 2. Why 2? Because the movie Top Gun came out 31 years ago this month on May 16th, 1986, and I was in the theater. Why only 2? By the time the ladies got up to the flight cycle on the F-14 on the carriers, the aircraft had been retired. Now they're flying, this is for Nora, excuse me. Now they're flying F-A-18 Hornets. Last time I checked, there's over 350 ladies who are carrier qualified in the F-A-18, and that's roughly 10% of the naval aviators. Science, math, we have these open houses. We actually had school administrators or parents or somebody cancel the open houses because they said there was nothing educational about going to the airport. We do weight and balance, we do navigation, we do meteorology. The shirt I have rhetorical question, have you ever heard of Superman? Have you ever heard of Superman flying faster than a speeding bullet? We have an aircraft that's been flying for over 50 years that cruises faster than a .30-06 rifle bullet.
And you're wearing the shirt.
And I'm wearing the shirt.
SR-71
If I tell people Mach 3, they go, yippee. If I tell people 2,100 miles an hour, they go, yippee. If I tell them 3,000 feet per second, they start to go, If I ask them if they've ever played on a soccer field or a football field, they say yes. How long is it? 100 yards. How many feet in a yard? 3. This airplane cruises 10 football fields per second. If we can get young ladies like Nora and her friends, and if Pete, who I'm just going to be meeting tonight, and the chief of police over here, which I say hi to every now and then, and you guys, I mean, this to me, I only became aware of this like 4 days ago. I'd say go forth and conquer, but then again, I'm just a dumb kid. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as they say, you've never been lost until you've been lost at Mach 3.
Exactly. And by the way, Brian Schuler is coming to the Bankhead Theater on May 18th, I believe.
Yeah.
SR-71.
Okay, Russ?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Name is Russ Greenlaw, Livermore resident. I've been a tenant of the airport for 39 years. I don't look old enough to have been a tenant that long, I'm sure, but it's true. I believe I heard Mr. Mayor ask, rhetorically perhaps a few minutes ago, who was going to support the proposed facility. The answer, of course, is the airport community will. The airport community is the sole support of the airport. There's no tax money goes there. Not only do we support the airport through fuel purchases and through hangar rent and tie-down rent, we actually pay property tax on portions of the airport. I pay $200 a year for property tax on that portion of the airport which I rent. So the airport community supports the airport. The airport community will support the proposed STEM facility. Guarantee it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenlaw. Christina Teslick, and finally, Connie Copps.
Hi, good evening. I'm Christina Teslich, and I'm a student pilot, but I'm also a high school teacher. I can tell you from being a teacher that many of our youth today are lacking confidence and the ability to make a decision on what they're interested in. And there's nothing that gives you more confidence than taking off an airplane, looking over to the right seat, and you just being in there by yourself. It is, and just that experience and the option to have that experience that the youth terminal would give the local community would take the kids to unknown heights. I mean, literally and metaphorically. It would just be amazing for everybody. I know that I also have 8 nieces and nephews and 2 daughters, and every single time they see a plane in the sky, plane, airplane, airplane, they love to be around them, love to look at them, and I think it would be great for parents and guardians of all the community to have somewhere to go to foster those interests for our kids, to be able to explore it and see where it would take them. And the youth terminal building would do just that. So I'm in full support of the building, and I think it would be a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Mr. Greenlaw pointed out, I did ask the question, who would, it's okay, this isn't just specifically, but the question that I had was not only the financing the building, but the programming behind it, because you put up a building, well, then you have the programming costs, the teachers, and yeah, we've got great volunteers, but there's a lot of infrastructure, and this is really, no one has presented a proposal to do anything like this. I said, this is the first, at least I've heard, I think first the council has heard of it. So we haven't heard anything about this. There's been no proposal, no thumbnail sketch on the back of an envelope. So we haven't seen anything about this. So as far as who's the teachers are going to be and the programming costs, so that's the question that I had. So, so when if a proposal comes to the city, but we don't have anything that's even remotely like that yet. So, with that, Connie Cox.
One thing.
Your question.
I mean, many of you.
We can't deliberate or.
I know. No. I was just going to say, many of you have come and as tonight, and have told us a lot of stuff. It might be worth because this may be the first time you've been to a council meeting as to how it works. So it can be very frustrating to come to Citizens Forum and talk about an item on the agenda because we're not allowed to talk about it. So just as long as you know that. So it's a lot of information came to us, but as the mayor is saying, we can't do anything with it at the moment. And the only time that we might begin to talk about this would be in matters initiated at the end of the meeting. So I'm just suggesting there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then, but I would just say thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I just want to let you know we can't do anything about it tonight.
Pete's got some huge hangar space out there, so there's some real opportunities for that too. Ms. Copps.
Hi, I'm not here to talk about piloting, but later. You guys are great, really organized, nice. Anyhow, I'm here to talk about Springtown, and I went to the April 27th meeting at Croce, and the contracted, I said RRC, they gave their proposals based on the past meetings, and every single one of those proposals had 100 to 200 parking spaces in it, and I'm still standing firm on my belief that there were people that were really left out of the loop that should have been considered, before we even got to the part where we called in outside help, contracting. I think that especially with our enterprise situations, I think not everybody has a clear understanding of where the city's involvement is in the enterprise funds. I even think that they might be involved in the airport in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's really important that there's more transparency along the way. It might have seemed like there was transparency, but there truly was a lot that was not addressed that should have been before we hired a design consultant. I really want you to dig deep and look at the past of the Springtown Golf Course. I know you're going to talk about the Las Positas Golf Course today as well. And I want you not to rule out bringing back maybe a 3-hole golf course. And I'd like you to please take a drive down Heather. The grass is like this high and dry and a fire hazard. I really think that it's getting to the point where, we want to really take a deep look at our decisions made in that area and follow the real true history along the way and make sure not to leave stones unturned, because I think you really find good solutions when you look at the truth. And I don't know, I think some of the truth needs to be stressed a little harder. And I think we need to make sure that the people making these decisions in our neighborhood are familiar with the history in all ways, shapes, or form. Because if you don't have the bare bones truth, you really can't come forward with a really good solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Copps. Just a question for, I guess, Mr. Spence. The ultimate decision on the next steps for the land that used to be the Springtown Golf Course, that's up to the Park District. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's true. They're going through a process, public outreach with a consultant that they hired, and they will be reaching a recommendation at the conclusion of that process.
Okay, so we're paying for the study, but they're the lead agency.
That's right.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, that's it for the Citizens Forum. Moving on to the consent calendar. Thank you for all of your comments tonight. Certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure this will be coming back for further consideration. So moving on to the consent calendar, these are items that are typically of a routine nature, and they're usually passed on a single motion. Does any of the council wish to pull any of the items for discussion? I do have a card for 4.03. So if I could, well, okay, let's just, we'll take 4.03. We have Kathy Lehman. Kathy Lehman. Oh, there we are.
I was coming up to talk about the grants.
Yes.
Is that number 4?
That's 4.03. That's
Oh, okay.
correct.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't
You're
have the
fine.
agenda. I'm from Sunflower Hill, and we submitted a grant to the Human Services Commission, and which the City Council is approving tonight. And I just wanted to thank you for. Looks like we're going to be awarded some part of our grant that we requested, and I wanted to thank you for that, and also to tell you about the success we had with our garden intern program, where within the last couple of weeks we had a garden intern be based upon the vocational skills that he got through the garden. He became employed at one of the local businesses, so it's kind of a success for us in terms of showing that the vocational program is a step to employment for our disabled students and adults. So once again, just wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a great partnership between Sunflower Hill and Eggeman Farm and Livermore Heritage Guild, and it's just one of these wonderful things about all the community coming together to support some really great causes.
And teaching the kids the horticulture skills, but also our interns and getting them into more permanent jobs.
Great. Well, thank you very much. With that, I'll entertain a motion of the consent calendar.
I'll move to accept the consent calendar.
Moved by Councilmember Carling.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Coomber. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? It passed unanimously. Moving on to public hearings. This is 5.01. This is the annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant Programs and the Home Investment Partnership. And Ty Robinson is stepping up. And Eric Uranga. All right, Ms. Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor Michelle.
Yeah, lifts up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good evening, Mayor Michon and council members. My name is Ty Robinson. I'm Human Services Specialist. And before you for consideration and approval for submittal to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, is the annual action plan for the fiscal year 2017-18. The annual plan provides detailed information regarding the city's planned annual disbursement of federal community development block grant and home investment partnership funds, more commonly known as CDBG and home programs. Since 1985, the city of Livermore has been a CDBG entitlement city, receiving upwards of $372,000 to $400,000 annually. HUD requires that entitlement jurisdictions hold a public hearing informing the council, Livermore residents, and HUD of the planned activities, projects, and its intentions to leverage federal funds with other funding sources in the upcoming fiscal year, and to allow the public to provide feedback on those planned activities. In addition to the required public hearing process, HUD also requires that all CDBG-funded activities meet one of the 3 CDBG national objectives, which includes providing assistance to low-income individuals and families, preventing and eliminating blight, and providing assistance after a disaster. The city anticipates funding 23 grants awarded to 16 public and nonprofit agencies that will meet the national objectives by improving access to affordable housing and services for over 10,000 low-income persons, families, and disabled populations in Livermore. The Action Plan and Human Services grant recommendations, amounts, and activities were unanimously recommended by the Housing and Human Services Commission at its March 14th commission meeting. Staff is requesting the City Council approve the annual action plan and authorize a submittal to HUD. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'm available to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have any cards, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. The tremendous amount of work that is accomplished and the support is really remarkable. The way that you can stretch these funds out. And question: does the CDBG programs or the home funding? Do we do any of the support for the 211 program?
We do. However, those are not, they don't come out of CDBG.
Okay, it's different pocket.
Different
Okay.
pot of money.
Okay, very good. Thank you. With that, I will, let's see. Oops. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll move to accept the action plan.
Okay, moved by Councilmember
second.
Carling, seconded by Councilmember Warner. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions, no noes. Okay, it's passed unanimously. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay, and moving on to 6.01, matters for consideration. This is the discussion and direction regarding establishing a downtown infill incentives program. Debbie Bell.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand, council members. My name is Debbie Bell, and I'm an associate planner for the City of Livermore. On January 23rd of this year, the City Council asked staff to analyze methods to incentivize small downtown infill developments. In response to this request, staff has formulated a downtown incentive program that provides financial assistance for new developments in the form of in lieu parking fee subsidies. Additionally, staff recommends amending the downtown specific plan to provide credit for new on-street public parking created by development, and conversely, require replacement of parking removed by new development. Tonight, we are looking for your feedback and direction on these recommendations. The City Council identified the downtown as a goal at the City Council's Goals and Priorities Workshop in February. The First Street core area, which is identified here on this graphic, the entire area highlighted in the golden color, it has historically been the most public and active place in downtown. However, some parcels on First Street in the core area are vacant or underdeveloped. These underutilized parcels create gaps in the pedestrian-oriented streetscape, degrade the pedestrian experience, and are lost economic opportunities. Property owners have expressed interest in developing or redeveloping these parcels, but have also expressed concerns regarding significant financial constraints and obstacles to develop these small infill sites. Council asked staff to analyze methods to incentivize small downtown infill developments. So the Downtown Infill Incentives Program before you tonight offers financial incentives to facilitate development of vacant or underutilized parcels in the core area on First Street. So again, that's this kind of golden area on First Street. This proposal recommends financial assistance for new developments in the form of in lieu parking fee subsidies. The current in lieu parking fee is $18,500 per parking space. Staff recommends subsidizing this fee because it is typically the largest development fee incurred by small downtown developments. Additionally, staff recommends subsidizing rather than waiving the fee because the city will need funding to construct future parking facilities commensurate with the development's parking requirements. As I mentioned previously, staff recommends subsidizing the in-lieu parking fee because it's typically the largest development fee incurred with the small downtown developments. The fee equates to nearly half of a project's total development fees, making these small parcels financially challenging to develop. And as you can see on this slide, the proposed program offers financial incentives to facilitate development of vacant or underutilized parcels in the core area on First Street, not anywhere else in the city. We're specifically focusing in this area. The proposal suggests and recommends for building additions a 50% reduction in the in-lieu parking fee for up to 7 spaces per project. For new buildings, the proposed program recommends a 50% reduction in the in-lieu parking fee for up to 10 parking spaces. And we're recommending this program as a 2-year trial with a general fund allocation not to exceed $200,000. The city will then use these funds to supplant the development's parking in lieu fee for the project's requirements. Additionally, staff recommends amending the downtown specific plan to provide credit for new on-street public parking created by development, and conversely, require replacement of any parking removed by new development. So development can create new on-street public parking by eliminating an existing driveway and replacing that vacated area with sidewalk and on-street parking. Currently, the downtown specific plan states that on-street parking shall not be counted towards a parking requirement, but it is silent about providing a credit for new on-street parking that's created by filling in a driveway and creating the new spaces. Conversely, the specific plan is silent regarding the consequences if a development eliminates existing on-street parking by creating a new driveway. So the amendment that we're recommending tonight to the specific plan would allow development that creates new on-street parking to receive credit for that on-street parking. And to qualify for that credit, all of the new on-street parking created would need to remain open for non-exclusive use by the general public at all times. The amendment would also require development to replace eliminated on-street parking on a one-to-one basis. The Downtown Infill Incentives Program, as proposed, requires all projects to meet specific plan requirements in order to receive financial assistance. The proposed program will achieve many community benefits related to good urban form, economic vitality, and sustainability. The program will promote new development, which will help create continuous storefronts and building frontages, improve the pedestrian experience, eliminate dead space, and reduce vehicular movements across the First Street sidewalks. Additionally, new development will also result in increased property tax, sales tax, and downtown vibrancy. If the council directs staff to move forward with these recommendations, city staff will formalize the program for Planning Commission and then City Council's consideration at future public hearings. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm here if there are any questions.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, excuse me, I have one. So I think so what you said was this is the biggest fee a developer pays today. So how do we know that if we do this, we'll actually generate some development? Do we know that?
So
Are developers saying if you only lowered the in lieu fee?
That is actually very much what we're hearing. So we did a lot of research to prepare for this proposal before you tonight. And one of the things we did was speak with multiple developers about some of the obstacles that they're facing. And the in lieu parking fee is what we heard the loud and clearest, their concerns, and actually discussed some proposals and some ideas and received feedback that this will help incentivize and likely create some new development.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a question to follow on. I do believe this will help. When do you approximately think the first one of the proposals will come through taking advantage of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have to go through the logistical steps of actually bringing a full proposal to both the Planning Commission and City Council with public hearings. So that process will go through a normal entitlement process or normal time frame. So likely July-ish by the time we would take it back to council for your final approval. And I would expect that I know that there are developers that are interested in watching this program develop right now, so it may be shortly thereafter.
I have another question. So is there any danger that some developers that have already paid the fee will come with their hand out looking for reimbursement?
I anticipate that the program that will come before you will go into effect for projects at the point where you approve the program, there forward, unless the council chooses to do something otherwise.
Okay.
I would also add that we don't have any small infill parcels that have just recently been approved that would be looking back.
Well, I didn't think so either, but I wasn't too sure. Okay, thanks.
The boundaries of this were quite specific in the core. What if somebody has a proposal that's maybe a block one way, either way out of the core, and they would come in and they would want to also be included? Would that be part of the consideration?
So as staff is proposing to you, we're suggesting to focus solely and completely on First Street in the downtown core. That's the area where we're looking again for most pedestrians and hoping to generate the activity on First Street in the core.
Okay, so just this is First Street core, but I know there have been some projects that have been proposed that never moved forward. And I think one of the things that was impacting them was the parking fee.
So one of the items there is that when the council either tonight can give direction to expand the area that would be subject to this, or during your consideration of that, the area that you're referring to, that we did have a project out in the transit area, not part of the core, and in-lieu parking was part of the feasibility challenge for that particular project. From staff's perspective, we did want to run a pilot project on a very small area to see the effectiveness of it, and bluntly also to sort of see the return on investment of the public's dollars, since this could ultimately be a significant amount. But at council direction, the area certainly can be expanded.
Okay, well, I like the point right now of being a pilot to see what works, but then recognizing this could be expanded if this is ultimately successful.
I agree with that completely.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Because I've so much feedback from small businessmen who want to start a business downtown, and when bringing that all the fees, and especially the in-lieu parking fee, when it was before we lowered it to $18,500 a few months ago, was myself as a business banker, I would not have looked twice without some further collateralization, which fewer small businesses would be able to support. So this gives real small business or startups an opportunity to, within this core area there, to get going. And I am kind of in favor too of let's start small and then think about expanding it throughout the neighborhoods.
Okay, I do have two cards, John Stein and Sherry Nigg. Mr. Stein.
John Stein, 1334 Cathy Court. I had two questions. The first one is, the in-lieu fee assumes that parking will be built somewhere to accommodate the cars generated by the project. I was wondering, in regard to particularly residential development, whether this works, whether people are willing to, buy a unit knowing that someday there will be parking somewhere, but maybe not convenient to where they're living. So I was wondering, how that will be guaranteed and whether it will work. The other thing is, talking about shared parking with residential is sort of problematic, since people go to businesses for a few hours, but people are generally parking around their home for 2/3 of the time. The other thing is, in the early 80s, there was a similar project proposed and actually started to be implemented, but the money eventually went to add parking to a factory outlet, a project out at Greenville. So is there any assurance that the money collected, even if it's reduced, will essentially go to parking? And the other question is, where, how, and when will this parking be built? I mean, again, it's, podium parking and submerged parking and a parking lot all assure that there will be parking, but this seems sort of vague. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, one of the cities here in Alameda County has just authorized development where there's one parking space for every 3 units. So it's a whole different piece. Mr. Spence, would you care to address the comments Mr. Stein had?
Sure. So today, for most residential units built in the downtown, they're required to provide their own parking on site.
For residential.
For residential. We do have an exception for second-story units above First Street, right in that downtown core area. So just a couple of blocks there, where at this time the specific plan was adopted, the finding was made that those parking spaces would be close enough to a downtown structure to enable people to walk. But the vast majority of spaces contemplated in the downtown are required to provide their own. And then the existing in lieu program does require that money stay in the downtown. We have been discussing with the council the prospect of building another parking structure, and so the funds collected from this type of project would go for that structure.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Nigg. Good evening.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for your consideration of this matter. We agree as property owners that the proposed incentives will help promote continued development and revitalization of the vacant and underutilized parcels in the downtown core. And we thank the city staff for their hard work and their dedication to taking care of this and to downtown development. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, that's it for the cards that I have. Comments from the council?
I support this. I think it's worth trying to do this. It's got a lot of benefits, and we're not talking about that much of a money impact. And then if it works, we can expand it.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this has to happen if you want to encourage small businesses to come here. When you see that all your other fees and costs to get involved down there are matched by the parking fee. It was until recently. This is a welcome bit of relief, I think, for anybody who wants to start a small business in downtown.
Well, certainly the downtown becomes more walkable when you don't have spaces in between the shops. So it's certainly going to improve the ambiance in the downtown. So it looks like there's general agreement this is a good idea. Councilmember Carling?
Do we have to make a motion?
No, it's just, I think it's just direction. Or would you prefer a motion?
Either way, but essentially we've got, my understanding is that the council's directing us to develop the final program and return ultimately through the planning commission for council consideration.
Very good. That's it.
I would also add to maybe sketch out an expanded area or a couple of expanded areas. If this does work as we hope, that we could in fact perhaps expand this thing a little bit and widen the area downtown, within the downtown as it currently stands.
Okay, very good. You have the direction you need? Okay.
If anybody has another speaker card they'd like to submit, now is the time. So if you want to submit your cards now, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, while the rest of the cards are coming in, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the May 8th meeting of the Livermore City Council. We're back in order. Now we're going to item 6.02, which is the discussion and direction regarding the operations of the Las Positas Golf Course. So we have Jeff Schaefer and Darren Greenwood.
Good evening, Mayor Rashan and council members. I'm Darren Greenwood, your Public Works Director. Tonight's item is discussion and direction on operation of the Las Positas Golf Course. We'll start with just a little background. The course was constructed in 1966 as an 18-hole championship course. Later in 1990, when the airport was expanded, the 9-hole course was added. The course has been remodeled several times over the years, most recently in 2012, after Jack London Boulevard was reconfigured for the outlet mall. So the course, a couple holes were reconfigured and other holes were remodeled. The airport is operated by the city as an enterprise fund, so it is fully funded through green fees and food and beverage revenue with no general fund tax support, property tax, and sales tax, so it's like a standalone business. The airport is partially constructed on airport land, so FAA requirements require that the airport pay market-based rent, so there is an additional cost that many airports don't face. Little history on the maintenance of the operational structure of the golf course. Over time, we've made some changes. Maintenance was originally done by city staff. In 2008, we contracted out the maintenance. So both the maintenance and the pro shop are now on a management agreement, basically where the city retains all revenue, pays all direct expenses of the employees, and pays a management fee to the companies that operate those two sides of the business. The food and beverage part of the business is still a concessionaire agreement, where the concessionaire retains all the revenue, pays the city a fixed rent or a rent based on a percentage of the gross receipts. Okay, recent operations history. The Las Pisas Golf Course has struggled for many years to generate enough net cash flow to fund replacement and capital improvements of the course after paying for its basic operating expenses. So in 2012, after losing about $2.5 million over a dozen years or so, staff commissioned a review by the National Golf Foundation. What the study found basically was without substantive managerial or operational changes, they predicted the course would lose approximately $1 million over 5 years. And their recommendation was to seek a master management agreement where all three sides of the operation would be under a management agreement where the city retains all revenue, pays a fixed management fee to a single operator. In July 2012, staff brought some recommendations to council, and those included going out for an RFP for a master management agreement, looking for a joint proposal from the current operators to put together a proposal to work together to meet the financial goals of the NGF study, or an extension at that time without doing an RFP. Council directed staff to go negotiate with the operators, which we did, and we returned in October when council directed staff to go ahead and finalize an agreement with the operators to do an extension. So in December 2012, council approved a 5-year extension with the existing operators based on a pro forma that staff and the operators had come up with. So where we're at now is we are in the 5th and final year of that extension. The agreements are set to expire on January 31st, 2018. The operators have had pretty much full autonomy to run the course as they see fit. They've submitted an annual plan each year, proposed different rates. They've also submitted an annual budget each year that proposed financial goals that were somewhat lower than the pro forma at the beginning of the contract. And despite these lower goals, the operators still have not met those. So they won't qualify for any of the automatic extensions provided in the agreements. We'll talk about those real quick. Actually, let's go back one. Those targets were after the 4th year, basically net cash flow through the 4th year of the agreement, or cumulative cash flow of $450,000, or by the 5th year and final year of the agreement, a net cash flow of $860,000. And again, they won't be making those. And here's a graph that's in the staff report showing, again, these are cumulative numbers over the years, with the ugly green being the pro forma and the blue being the actual results. So they started off the first year a little bit better than expected. They had budgeted in the pro forma to lose about $130,000 and only lost $68,000. The second year, they were just going to lose $20,000, bringing the pro forma goal for the second year to $150,000, and instead it was a negative $346,000. So you can see as we go through the year, basically by 2016, they were supposed to have a net positive cumulative cash flow of $192,000, and instead we are $764,000 to the negative. The operators' budget, let's go ahead and go to some totals here. So we're $764,000 to the negative through 2016. The operators' 2017 budget estimate is to lose $233,000, which would bring us to $997,000 of loss over 5 years. The current performance is a little bit behind previous years, so staff is questioning whether they'll meet the 233. It could be more, so it could be slightly over the $1 million number by the end of the 5 years. Green fees make up about 60% of the golf revenue, and green fees have been down 9.7 to 11.3% over the last few years. This slide basically shows the budget projection and the actual revenue. So basically, cumulative green fees over the first 4 years are down about $1 million from the pro forma that was submitted by the operators. So, food and beverage revenue, it is the one area of the business that exceeded the pro forma. So they're bringing more revenue for the restaurant than was anticipated. The bad side for the city enterprises, golf course revenue only about 5 to 6%. Food and beverage makes up only about 5 to 6% of the total revenue that we get from the operation. And just a reminder of how it works, basically. For food and beverage, the city, the municipal enterprise for the golf course retains about 7% of all the revenue that comes in. On the golf side, so green fees, cart rentals, driving range, those kind of revenues, we retain about 23% of those. So it's very important for the operator to be able to drive revenue to the golf side for the health of the golf enterprise. So here's a graphic representation of the food and beverage revenue over the first 4 years and the pro forma number for 2017, the 5th year. Basically, cumulative food and beverage revenue is up about $1 million over the 4 years. During that time, city revenue was about $726,000 of the $10 million that came in, so that's where the 7% number comes from. The other piece that determines the overall profitability of the golf course is the city side of it, the indirect costs that we have. These would be things like debt service, the FAA rent, any staff time, any overhead from the city. All of that counts against the profit as well. Cumulative costs through 2016, we're about $48,000 over what we said. Remember that when the pro forma was launched back at the time of the contract, city expenses were estimated, and we were supposed to increase those per CPI over the contract to make sure that the operators were protected if there was a cost overrun or something broke at the plant. So we've been tracking those costs. Through 2016, we've spent about $48,000 more than the CPI adjusted number. Good news is 2016 was lower than the previous year, and 2017 is going to be even lower. So by the end of the 5 years, staff's projecting that city staff costs or city overhead costs will be about $120,000 below the CPI adjusted number, below our target for the 5 years, basically. So we will have met our side of the obligation as far as keeping costs below what we said they were going to be. So basically, the funding needs or the things that are not being met. You know, we have lost almost $1 million over the 5 years. There's also an accumulated deficit. Total general fund has advanced about $1.9 million to cover losses at the golf course. So that's the $700,000 we've done over the last 5 years, and roughly 1.2 that it was already behind before this extension started. In addition, after covering direct expenses, the course needs to generate at least $200,000 to cover capital expenses or presumed capital expenditures that are going to happen over the next 25 years. If you annualize those, it's about a $200,000 number. Now that the city's doing its asset management program, our group that's doing that has looked at the buildings out there and said, well, you may need another $200,000 just for the buildings, aside from irrigation systems. So the $200,000 number we've been using could go as high as $400,000 for what needs to throw off per year to pay for all the assets that are out there. But $200,000 is the number we've been using, and we'll stick with that. The other thing we'd like to point out is, you know, we've received some letters from, I'm sure, some of the folks that are in the audience mentioning that, you know, don't take the risk of looking for other operators. I think what staff would say is the course is at risk now financially. It's losing $1 million over 5 years. The ability for the general fund to continue subsidizing puts council in a difficult position. So staff's whole reason for coming up with a recommendation to look for an RFP is to look for the sustainability of the course, basically to get revenues up, to cover the operating costs and generate enough money for capital. Because if not, for example, the backside irrigation is $1 million. If that were to fail, that's an investment that I'm not sure the city would want to come up with the current financial situation. So we're looking for sustainability here. Okay, benefits of the RFP or a master agreement. First of all, it's general city practice to go out and bid contracts and agreements that have a lot of risk, a lot of public money in the mix. So standard practice is basically every 5 years or so we would typically go out and bid these kind of contracts. Corsco last participated in a competitive bid for course maintenance in 2008. The DBED entities last participated in a competitive bid in 2005, and Beeb's Restaurant has been under contract since '91 and has not participated in a competitive bid in that time. It's just generally good practice to go out and bid and check the market and see what's out there and what we could get. The other concept there is going out for the RFP. We have a lot of financial data on the performance to date, but to know what the market will bear, to what we could get for the property, really we think the RFP is the next logical step to get that information that we need to make a decision. The city wouldn't be obligated necessarily to taking a proposal. We'd be able to go out and look, and if we didn't get what we wanted, we could pursue other options. The other point about the master management agreement is, and this is pointed out in the NGF study and based on staff. I mean, Jeff is our maintenance and golf course manager, but his experience is building golf courses and operating golf courses. So Livermore is in a unique position to have somebody on staff that's looked at these things. So basically, there's the synergy between having a single operator. They're able to offer better discounts on food and beverages and basically maximize that amount of revenue coming to the city's enterprise. The other thing is a single agreement with a single operator and one management fee eliminates the need for an extra profit. So if there's a separate restaurant operator, they need to take a profit to justify their business as well. So the staff recommendation is to circulate an RFP to operate the Las Positas Golf Course under a master management agreement. A little updated timeline because the timeline in the staff report has had to change a little bit. There's several other RFPs that finance department's putting out, so they wouldn't be able to meet the timeline we had. It's been pushed back. So the proposal would be to issue sometime in June, and then we'd allow about 8 weeks for proposals. So it would be in July when we review the proposals, and then selection and interview the top 3 proposers would occur in August. And then we would come with some finalists and negotiate a contract in September, and basically looking to come back to council if we are recommending an award in October. And then the new start date would be February 1st after the full agreement expires. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, questions, staff at this point? Councilmember Carling?
Yes, thanks for the report. So NGF in 2012 provided a recommendation about going to a single management operator then, and predicted that we'd lose $1 million over 5 years if you didn't.
Yes.
So we're losing $1 million?
That's what it's looking like. I would say the NGF proposal report was pretty accurate in that regard. We're going to be, depending on where we finish the last year, right at $1 million or maybe up to $1.2 million.
So what am I missing? Why? I mean, I wasn't obviously not on the council then. What was the thinking behind not taking the NGF recommendation?
Well, I mean, I think it's a difficult proposition to ask council to go out and shop for an existing operator when you have people who are very successful.
Yeah, sure.
So I think what you're going to hear from, I assume, some people in the audience tonight is that the operators are very successful. They run good programs, and while they may not be meeting the financial goals of the city, everybody liked the operation. So the thought was, I think, I was not in charge of golf at the time either, but in looking back at all the notes and the history and the staff reports, I think council wanted to provide an opportunity for our existing operators to come together as a single entity to change their operations a little bit to try and squeeze out the revenue that we needed for the operation and to meet the goals in the NGF report. And after staff negotiated with them and came up with a performance that seemed to meet those numbers, council thought, it looks like a possibility. So let's go with the known quantity rather than taking the risk. And we did that, and we've done, I think, what we can. And the operators have done what they can, I think, too. But now we're to the point where, to really get to sustainability, I think we need to see what the market will bear.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Sure. And I can actually speak to that because I was
you
there.
were right.
I was actually there, and I sat down with all the contractors, and they're doing a great job. And we heard from a number of the folks in the community, and we're going to hear from them tonight as well. But the fact of the matter is we sat down with the contractors and allowed them really to do a lot of cross-marketing and to be unencumbered to develop the business as much as possible.
Okay.
And we sat down, and if we could pull back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slide number 5.
Maybe.
That's the first bar graph.
One more.
One more.
Come on. Oop.
Oh, yeah, there. So we sat down with the operators, and they developed a pro forma that would work over the next 5 years. And this is what we were presented, that they saw having the freedom to cross-market and to work together without the city getting in their way, they would be able to match this pro forma. Unfortunately, as we see, that has not been the case. Question for staff: when we just closed a golf course that was not performing as an enterprise. We closed Springtown because it was being subsidized a couple $100,000 a year. When Springtown closed, did any of that play come over to Las Positas?
Yes.
No, but we had some press about that.
Yes, I think anecdotally we have some evidence that play came over. I think the men's and ladies clubs, some of those moved over and started playing. But as far as a measurable increase in the amount of rounds or revenue, unfortunately we didn't see that, or we haven't seen it yet. So while we believe some people came, we haven't seen a rebound of the course that would.
There hasn't been an increase in revenue.
Not that we've seen, no.
Okay. All right. But that's the background behind
No,
it.
yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilman Warner?
I was here 5 years ago too, and I think what's been said so far is fairly accurate this time. And I think we're where we were now. Where we were 5 years ago is where we are now, and the question is, what do we do?
I might ask where I guess when we see reduced number of rounds coming in, one of the facts, I pay big attention to sports, as most people who know me know, and rounds, golf is not a growing sport right now. And so if we're going to demand financial performance with a declining use, that leaves us with a different set of questions, I think. And I don't know, I don't know if there's any way, just looking at it from several different perspectives here. I don't know, how would you answer that? I should formulate a question.
I'm not sure I heard a question, but that's okay. I'll give it a shot. How do we match the challenge of getting the revenue we need in a time of declining rounds? Is that fair? In my opinion, and in people's opinion who know golf way better than me, I believe that's where the importance of a single operator agreement comes in. If you look at some of the rounds and revenue information for other courses, we have examples of other courses in this area whose rounds are declining, who's not spending less on maintenance, whose revenue is still going up. And the only way to do that I know of is leveraging the amount of food and beverage revenue that the enterprise receives, or maximizing the amount of dollars that you get out of each golfer that comes in.
So basically the point is what we're trying to do is figure out the current business model is not working because it's not allowing it to operate as an enterprise. So what staff is proposing is an RFP to see if there is a business model out there that will enable us to operate this as an enterprise. That's what we're looking at.
Correct.
That's the bottom line for the city, is to operate it as an enterprise, just like the water enterprise, like the airport enterprise, like a golf course enterprise, because it's supposed to raise the amount of money that it takes to operate the program, absent subsidies. And that's a whole nother discussion to have as to whether, as stewards of public dollars, how are those public dollars best spent? And is it in subsidies? Is it in public safety? But enterprises are supposed to operate as an enterprise. So what we're looking to do is to find an operations model that will allow it to operate as an enterprise. And that was what 4 years ago we sat down and we saw that the pro forma, based on an unencumbered business model to allow cross-marketing, that it would operate as an enterprise. But what we've seen over the last 4 years is that that model has not been successful. So what we're trying to do as the city is to find a successful model so that it will operate as an enterprise. Is that a fair statement? Okay. Yeah? Okay, very good then. Any other questions? All right then. So we have 40 cards here tonight. Everybody, wait. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable speaking. So that's why I don't allow booing. However, so that everybody has equal time and equal access. If I don't allow booing, I don't allow applause either. So if you agree with the statement of a speaker, raise your hand. And the good thing about that is the speaker doesn't see if the crowd agrees with them or not, because we see you, but the speaker doesn't. So it works very well. And for very contentious sorts of things, it's proven that it works well. So if you agree with the speaker, raise your hand. If you don't, just sit quietly and allow everybody to have their say. Again, we got 40 cards here tonight. If someone has already said something that you plan on saying, just say, you know what, I agree with them, and let's move it along so that everybody can have an opportunity to have their say. What I'd like to do is let's...
well, just point out 40 times 3 is 2 hours.
Yeah. Doesn't the Grateful Dead come on with breakfast at about 1 o'clock or so? It's a different group. Okay, so let's I want to give everybody a chance to speak. Let's go for 2 minutes comments, and we'll hope for the best on that. If somebody's already said what you wanted to say, hey, great, I agree with them. We're taking notes. This is all going to be on television, and we can go through the video and capture everybody's comments as well. So with that, start off, I've got Mike Sharp, Jeff DeBenedetti, and Gianna DeBenedetti. Mike Sharp.
That's me.
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff.
You know,
Thank
okay,
you.
let me just distract a little.
Sure.
So, for the contractors, I'll go ahead and go. Let's go for 3 minutes on that. Because
thank you.
You guys have more to say, and you are actually in the process, and you probably planned it for 3 minutes. So I don't want to cut you guys off, and I want to make sure we hear from you. So for the, and I'm just trying to be fair to everybody. So for the contractors, 3 minutes. For the rest of the supporters or the folks in the audience, let's go for 2 minutes, and we'll see how that works. Sound like a plan? Okay, Mr. Sharp.
Well, I'm Michael Sharp. I'm the president of Corsco and Livermore Golf Management. We do your maintenance out at your golf course. We work with the other two operators, DeBenedetti's and Beeb's Sports Bar, and they've asked for me to represent us tonight and speak on all of our behalf. We really wanted to do a presentation also tonight, but we were informed, unfortunately, that we could not. So we'll take this opportunity to just share our concerns and voice maybe another perspective. Really, the purpose of being here tonight is we want to take the opportunity to share, our perspective as your operator and as your partner, and how we believe we're actually performing. You guys have a big decision tonight, and we feel it's very important that you see the entire picture. We're very proud of our work. We're very proud of our accomplishments over the last several years. I think it's important that we point out some slight differences that we may have from city staff. First is the financial picture. Very ominous. I see this picture up here, and it truly doesn't reflect what's going on at the golf course. Your operators, the three of us, are charged with delivering the largest net operating income that property can deliver. And over the last 4 years, we have averaged $800,000 in profit from the property. That's total revenue that's brought in at the golf course, minus total operating expenses at the golf course, and what is left over is $800,000 in net operating income. When we compare that to the 12 other golf courses that I operate from Corsco, and 6 that Dan's company has involvement with, that is top performance. Las Positas is equal or superior in its bottom line performance than all of those facilities. That's pretty impressive, and we're impressive with our financial record. You have a team in place here that is delivering top results and performing financially, despite what you see here. We're also doing it in a market, it hasn't been touched on, how difficult the golf market is. In our market alone, 3 golf courses have closed just in the last 18 months. They're failing. Your very own Springtown, Brady Ranch, Sunol, That's how challenging this golf market is, and we have consistently delivered, despite the economic pressures, of $800,000 per year. So where's the confusion? The city overhead is $1.1 million. We have nothing to do with that. We have no say in how that's calculated. We have no say in what makes up that. We're charged with delivering $800,000 to the bottom line. When you minus the $1.2 million in overhead, or 1.1, that's where you get the deficit. Over our 4 years, we've delivered over $3 million in top line, actually in total bottom line profit. The last thing I want to talk about, I'm going to be quick because I see that 8 seconds, I might go 30 seconds over, is as the NGF report. The NGF report, we believe, needs some updating. It's from 2012. The market, as I just described, has significantly changed. We've had floods, we've had rain, we've had drought. Golf courses have closed. It's time to take a look at that and evaluate if, that report if it's using for the basis for an RFP. We really are trying to get to the right place for the management of the golf course. It's a big decision that you have to make, and it has risk, it has expense, and all for the unknown. I also want to point out one last thing about city staff. We worked very hard with city staff, and I appreciate their efforts and their work as we tried to negotiate a proposal. They worked really hard. They came to the table, and we spent 6 months, and we came this close to getting a deal done to potentially extend our contract, and I appreciate their hard work. I'm here tonight because Las Positas and Livermore means something to me and my company, and it means a lot more to our employees. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's get those hands up.
Thank you. Jeff DeBenedetti, and Gianna DeBenedetti, and Lori Sargent.
We yielded our time to the
Oh.
overage that Mike just had. He said
Okay.
eloquently on our behalf, so we yielded our time to his overage.
Okay, that's fine. You still got 3 minutes, though, if you want.
I think I'm good.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, yeah, Dan's coming up, too. Okay, Lori Sargent, Dennis Bogle, Richard Shaw. Sent you an email today.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and community members. My name is Lori Sargent, and I'm a proud patron of Beeb's Sports Bar and Grill. Last week, I sent you a letter highlighting the numerous favorable events and activities my friends, family, and I have participated in over the years at Beeb's and DeBenedetti's Golf Shop. Tonight, I come to share a few comments publicly to reiterate the need to renew the Beavers and DeBenedetti's contracts. Growing up in the Tri-Valley, I have watched Livermore evolve from a small cow town into a thriving boom town. Yet in spite of the economic and physical growth, it hasn't lost its down-home charm. This is due in large part to the many locally owned, family-run businesses like Beeb's and the DeBenedetti's Golf Shop. Las Positas is where we gather with our children and parents to celebrate birthdays, play foot golf, hit some balls, cheer on our favorite sports teams, or enjoy the view with a glass of wine. There are other places in the Tri-Valley that offer these activities, but none have all at the same location, and none have the same family-friendly yet professional environment. The quality and care the owners, the Beavers and the DeBenedetti's put into their businesses is reflected not only in the quality of their service, products, and food, but the overall positive atmosphere you experience both on the green and in the restaurant. It's the people behind the business that make and will sustain the Las Positas Golf Course. The Beavers and DeBenedetti's have created a culture that appeals to the weekend warrior golfer, the retired folks that call the course their new office, the young tykes and teens trying to emulate Rory's swing, the diehard Steelers fans, the ladies on their lunch break from the shopping outlets, the soccer teams commemorating a victory, and the families taking a night off from cooking. All are welcome and all are made to feel at home. There's an automatic camaraderie amongst those who frequent Beeb's and the course. Livermore is the best place to live in the Tri-Valley because the city hasn't sold out yet. Historically, you have made it a priority to foster a sense of community by protecting locally owned and operated small businesses. I hope you continue to do so. This is an enterprise model that keeps us connected and helps us thrive as a city. Dan, Jean, and Jeff have cultivated a strong community. They are Class 1 people, and so are their businesses. Please extend and renew the Beavers and DeBenedetti's contracts indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dennis Bogle, Richard Shaw, Ron Dovici, sorry.
Well, I don't have to go over the family atmosphere. She covered it eloquently, and I think that it's very important to keep that kind of atmosphere. The other thing, listening to the numbers, I hope you're probably already doing this, to listen to what Mike had said on numbers, versus their numbers. I mean, there's got to be something going on there. So I hope you check into that very carefully. The main thing on the family atmosphere that Jeff and Scott, for example, and the other members, they know almost every individual that comes into the clubhouse by first name. And I think that the one thing, and they've done a great job on the programs with the students coming in. And I think one thing is very important, especially nowadays, that I think they're very good at including all cultures in this atmosphere that we have in our cities. So I think that's extremely important to remember their ability to develop from all different cultures and really keep those, as the kids are going to talk to you about the success that they've had, and it's getting better every year. And the numbers have actually increased as well. And it has to do with that family versus corporation type of situation, you might say. Because they're vested in the, well, Jeff's been there at least 25 years, I think, 27. And they're really vested in Livermore and in what they do for Livermore as a whole. So the cultural idea that I'm pointing out has a lot to do with, I think, improving Livermore's notoriety as well. The junior program, they're going to touch on it, I'm sure. It's excellent. They've had, at least that I know of, off the top of my head, they've helped at least 15 potential prospects to teach, and they've trained them. Jeff and his staff has trained them in that regard. And so basically, I think that that's my main points that I wanted to make regarding that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bogle. Richard Shaw, Ron Dovici, Jim Smith.
Good evening. I'm Richard Shaw. I actually live in Pleasanton, and I come here. This is the first time coming to this council meeting, so it's been great, eye-opening. I live in near downtown Pleasanton area, and I have 3 kids. One of them goes to Amador Valley High School, and 2 are in Pleasanton Middle School. So they all play golf, right? So where did they get started with golf? Actually, all started with my son, and he started at 7, and when we moved from South Bay to San Ramon, so that's 2007, we were looking for good golf programs, okay? And we found there are several. One is in Pleasanton, and we actually went there first. That's their first tee program. And then there's another great one in San Ramon Golf Club. I think that one may be closed pretty soon, the golf course, unfortunately. And then we found this great program in Livermore at Las Positas. So I'm trained as an engineer, and I work for a high-tech company in Silicon Valley. So I'm very analytical. So I look at all the things I do. I have a chart to compare, essentially. And I found the best program. So my kids actually wanted to come here, and they cannot, but I have one that I actually have 3 video recordings. I'm going to do one.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm 14, and I'm in 8th grade. I go to Pleasanton Middle School, and I play on the school golf team there. I started playing golf when I was 8 years old in 2011, and started going to Las Positas at the same time. I still play at Las Positas. I'm part of the junior program and have been for many years. The junior program is a really great program that has helped me with my golf skills and life skills, and I've made so many great friends that I'm still friends with today. Las Positas is like home. I can go there and I feel safe. My parents drop me off and I can practice there for hours. The coaches there are amazing, especially Coach Jeff. He has been my coach for a couple of years, and I can go to him and he will look at my swing and he knows exactly how to fix it. He is very encouraging and one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. The Las Positas program has really shaped me into the golfer I am.
So I know time is up, but I want you to know that I actually spent a lot of money in Livermore. We went to Corsco shopping. We calculate we spent about $30,000 a year in Livermore. So that's our contribution to Livermore economy.
Yeah, but Pleasant is
And we've
getting,
been doing it for 9 years, by the
Pleasant
way.
is getting their Costco soon. Okay, Ron DeVici, Jim Smith, Candace Roberts.
I'm Ron DeVicki, and I am the former president of the Springtown Golf Club and the current president of the Livermore Valley Golf Club. In 2015, a lot of our members in Springtown saw the handwriting on the wall about the conditions of the course and the way it was going. Developed our own new club, the Livermore Valley Golf Club, and contacted Jeff Benedetti to try to reschedule our tournaments every Thursday at Las Positas. He worked with us diligently, welcomed us with open arms. We had a few speed bumps, but with cooperation between the two of us, we were able to get those all settled out, and everything's been running smoothly ever since. As far as the maintenance of the course, I don't think with this past winter that we had, there's no doubt of the quality of the maintenance that has gone to the course in a very short time. The course is in excellent playing condition as it stands. The only comment I can say is that I've been playing golf only since 2010. And so my experiences with Springtown and with Las Positas, and basically the experience that we had at Springtown shows that going out to someone you don't really know didn't work too well. And do you really want to tie yourself with someone that you have no one experience with, rather than keep the competent people you have now? Thank you.
Thank you. And just to make a comment on that, what this council did was what the community wanted. That was the direction that the community selected. There were a number of options that were presented, and that was the option that the community wanted. That wasn't something that the city jumped at, but there was only one operator that submitted. So that was what the community wanted to do, and we followed the community's direction. Jim Smith, Candace Roberts, Dan Geisbuehler.
I'm Jim Smith. I live in Pleasanton and play golf in Livermore. And there's a reason for it. You have two people out there, both Jeff Benedetti and Scott Steelman, who run an incredible program that's seamless from us seniors who've been playing golf for 65 years to the juniors who were just starting. I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how they were able to transfer the image that Livermore stands for at the golf course itself. They do an incredible job with that. There's a lot of pride out there. And one of the issues about being a senior is you like to go out to a golf course where they like to have you. A lot of the corporate courses now, it's almost like they're doing you a favor by allowing you to play golf there. That's not the case at Las Po. No way is that. They make you feel welcome. They know most of the guys' names who play. And you start, and I won't repeat anything, but you think about, if you got a cracked sewer pipe, you got to replace it. A street full of potholes, they need to be repaired. Las Positas isn't broken. It doesn't need fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace Roberts, Dan Geisbuehler, and Rogelio Paredes.
Hi. I live in Pleasanton also, and I've really gone back and forth about what to say about this. It's a very, very emotional issue because it's a family issue. And I wanted you to think about you as Livermore Council. You have neighbors. We are your neighbors. Dublin are your neighbors. San Ramon are your neighbors. So any decision that you would decide to make about this golf course and the management affects way more people than just in Livermore. It will affect all of us. I think anybody that goes out and knows Jeff and Gianna are as devoted to them as we feel Jeff and Gianna and the golf course staff are devoted to us. It comes through in everything they do, the way that they treat us. Sorry, I really am emotional about this. I feel that we have deep, deep ties with Las Po, and if you do anything to change this management, it will sever those ties. I don't think that anybody can replace what we have right now. Nobody. There are 9 core values for the first T, and the one that comes to me about Jeff is the word perseverance. I've never seen him give up on anything. Never, ever. He has taught me so much about staying with something. When it is big, it's almost like I can get creative. I can do this. And Jeff is a person that will not disappoint. I don't want to keep going on and on. I just can't tell you how much it would mean to lose this group. I don't think that you have any possibility of thinking that a new management team could make it work. But you would be guaranteed that if you lose them, you will lose a lot. You will not replace it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Dan Geisbuehler, Rogelio Paredes, and Scott Steelman.
Good evening. So my name is Dan Geisbuehler. I've been a Livermore resident for 42 years. I've been on the food service industry side for 24, 9 years as an operator at Winty Vineyards and the last 15 at U.S. Food Service, now U.S. Foods. Beebs is an institution in Livermore. When I go back and think of the restaurants that have kind of stood the test of time, Beebs is one of those restaurants. Donut Wheel, Casa Roscoe, there's not many. You look at the revitalization of downtown, there's only a few that have stood the test of time, and Beebs is one of those. Success in the restaurant industry is a very thin line. Average profit margins for independent restaurants is 3.8%, with 60% of restaurants going out of business within the first year, and 80% going out of business within the first 5. So we have lightning in a bottle here with Beebs and the success they've had. You've seen the revenues grow over their years. So it's tough to catch lightning in a bottle 2 times. I don't think we should mess with what we've got. We should keep what we currently have with all 3 parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Rogelio Paredes, Scott Steelman, Lynn Stasa.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rogelio Paredes. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I'm emotional. And so I'm resident in Livermore for 20 years already. And my kids is going to public school in Livermore. And I work for Beebs 13 years already. And they give me the opportunity to work in this wonderful restaurant. And then Jean gave me the opportunity to grow up in Beebs. So I'm start to the bottom, to the dishwasher, prep, cooking. Now I'm the kitchen manager, and my co-workers, they have families and they're married, and they are residents in Livermore, and we spend a lot of money in Livermore and shopping, and so I hope the council understand and impact if Beebs is gone. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paredes. Scott Steelman, Lynn Stasa, Jenny Solaro.
Hi, my name is Scott Steelman. I'm a current golf professional at Las Positas Golf Course serving the Livermore community. I started to play golf at Las Positas at age 12 and was involved in the junior program that is still current. My mom would drop me off early mornings, leave me over the summers. Jeff was the guy. Yeah.
Come back in September, right?
Jeff and all the professionals then, they always have an eye out for the kid that's out there alone. I spent all my summers there. At the age of 15, I got hired by Jeff to work in the cart barn. Through high school golf, college golf, the Las Positas family was always there for me, whether it was, giving me hours when I needed them or swing advice or swing help. I had the opportunity to give back, and now I help with the junior program that I was involved with. My wife and I, and soon-to-be daughter, are currently looking to buy a house in Livermore. I like working for the community that I potentially will live in, have lived in before. And I feel like if there's an operator change, that is in jeopardy. Me being able to stay at Las Positas and actually find a home and live in Livermore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Steelman. Lynn Stasa, Jenny Solaro, Lauren Bieber.
Hi, I'm Lynn Stasa. I've been living in this town for over 55 years. I belong to the ladies, both the ladies golf club. So I'm speaking on behalf to a lot of them, or you'd have a lot more blue cards up there. So, Mayor, I did like what you said about Springtown Golf Course and listening to the community. You hit a nerve. So please listen to what we all have to say, because it's really important. One of the things, this graph and these charts, I think what you really need to do, because I know that was made by staff, is I think that council needs to look at a more honest review and listen to what we have to say, because I think it'd be an eye-opener. The junior program that won national finals, and that's a big deal. And the magazine, I don't know if you all saw it, but there's a nice write-up in the magazine. So please don't let staff undermine that accomplishment. Jeff DeBenedetto has made that program exceptional. And have you ever been to Beebs on a Friday night? It looks like Family Central. I'm telling you, the Beavers really care about the family values and, of course, the sports fans. Warriors won, yay. And California has had probably the worst winters we had, and Las Positas was flooded. And it was a disaster, but Mark Condos, he brought that course back to life, so thanks, Mark. So in all, I think that you can see the support that we have, and the thought of an added expense of an RFD that will eventually trickle down into the pockets of the taxpayers is not needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Solaro, Lauren Bieber, Gwen Lewis.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Solero, and I'm a third generation born and raised here in Livermore. My son will be the fourth generation, is graduating in 2017 at Livermore High. I have been employed at Beebs for 23 years, just shortly after the doors opened in its current building. 9 of those years, I have been the general manager. We have 45 employees, where many of them have been employed for over 10 years. This includes a combined 57 years at Beebs between myself, our kitchen manager, Rogelio Perez, and our assistant manager, Matt. One of our employees, he got a job because he came in with his family as a kid, and he thought it was a great place to work. The length of time that our employees stay is unheard of in the restaurant business. We almost have no turnover, and that's because of Dan and Jean. Beebs is their family. The community is their family. Whomever walks through the doors are family, right down to our vendors. It's truly amazing. There are so many reasons why I'm proud to be part of the Beebs family, and we do not have enough time tonight to talk about all of them, but I will tell you about one, and that's the support of our community. Beebs offers an ongoing support to our fundraisers for our Livermore schools, Livermore sports programs, all types of charities, and most cherished, our annual Charity Golf Classic. Over the last 22 years, our Charity Golf Classic has raised money for the Livermore High School golf teams, the Las Positas Junior Golf Program, Buenas Vidas Youth Ranch, Shepherd's Gate, Leukemia, Light the Night Walk, Avon, Walk for Breast Cancer, the Alden Wright Foundation, Autism, and currently Centennials of Freedom. This has been an important part of our community's culture, and it would sadden me to see it stop. We have been through so much over the years. Fire, floods, a rough economy, a record drought, another flood, and we have survived. It's not easy, it's what we do. We are here every day to serve you, the families of Livermore, our neighbors, the golfer, the golf tournament, the wedding, the anniversary, business meeting, birthday, baptism, bereavements, as well as all the sports teams that come in after the games, because they know we will take care of them, because it's what we do. I feel Livermore needs Beebs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Lauren Bieber, Gwen Lewis, Phil Collins.
Hello. My name is Lauren Bieber. I am the daughter of Dan and Jean Bieber, the owners of Beebs Sports Bar and Grill. I'm here today to give you kind of a backdoor glimpse into the story of Beebs. My parents opened Beebs in 1984, the year I was actually born. My mom was behind the grill flipping pancakes and burgers at 9 months pregnant. Pretty impressive. In August, no doubt. In 1988, Beebs and the business above us caught fire. I recall running around on the putting green as the firefighters informed my parents that it wasn't possible to save the building, and they watched it slowly burn to the ground. My parents could have given up, but this didn't deter them from accomplishing their dream. They pushed on and kept Beebs alive. For the next 5 years, they successfully ran Beebs out of a food truck that was attached to a trailer. I vividly remember going to work with them, pretending to drive the food truck, and running around the dining area trying to convince the golfers to buy me Junior Mints. In 1994, they were finally able to move into the Beebs building that we are currently in today. After working at Beebs throughout high school, I went off to college, traveled, and began to work for a tech company. After some time in the corporate world, I knew something was missing. The family business was in my blood, and it was calling me home. About 7 years ago, I came back to Beebs, excited to learn from the absolute best and to help keep the Beebs tradition alive and well for years to come. A choice I will never, ever regret. I've had the privilege of watching my parents turn Beebs into one of the top public golf course restaurants in the country. Literally, that's a fact. That's not to say that it hasn't been quite the roller coaster ride. When the recession struck in 2008, my parents did everything in their power to keep Beebs afloat. They didn't take a paycheck for over 2 years, putting any profits right back into the business. They took a line of credit on my childhood home to make sure they could keep everyone employed and the restaurant doors open. If that doesn't exhibit dedication and a true love for what you do, I don't know what does. We've made it through the bumps in the road, and the future is bright. The last couple years have been some of the best on record for us. I can't even imagine how heartbreaking it would be. I have some more, sorry. How heartbreaking it would be to see my family's dream taken away right as we are hitting our stride. This is not just a restaurant. This is a home, a family, not just to me, but to many of our incredible employees and our fabulous customers. We are beyond lucky to have employees and customers who have been an integral part of Livermore and the Beebs family for over 20 years, which is unprecedented in this service industry. Just a little bit more. Livermore prides itself on supporting local, family-run businesses. As you can see from everyone gathered here tonight, not only do we have a successful local family-run business, but one that is loved and cherished by the people of Livermore. I think it is pretty clear that keeping all the current operators at the Las Positas Golf Course is a win-win for everyone involved. I would like to end a quote from our mayor, John Marchand, that really resonates with me. The character and heritage of Livermore truly makes our community a special place to live and work. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Gwen Lewis, Phil Collins, Jim Furr.
Good evening, Council. Gwen Lewis, longtime golfer, back to Red Baron days. Lots of history, women's groups, golfing, and most of all, I chaired for 3 years, a very successful fundraising golf tournament, dinner, auction, raffle at Las Positas. Very successful for a nonprofit organization, NAMI Tri-Valley. I couldn't have done this, the NAMI board couldn't have done this without the help of Jeff and his staff. As a board member of NAMI Tri-Valley, none of them were golfers except me. And when I talked to the NAMI board about a fundraiser and mentioned golf, they all got scared and didn't know what green fees were. They didn't know what tee box was, so there was a lot of education going on. Jeff came out to the board. He educated the NAMI board about a golf tournament, and we had 3 successful years. You cannot find management like this. It's not replaceable. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Collins, Jim Furr, Greg May.
Yeah, Phil Collins. Sorry to disappoint you. I don't sing, I don't play the drums. I'm the former president of U.S. Foods here in Livermore. I was the president there for 28 years. And that company happens to be the largest supplier of food to restaurants and hotels in Northern California. So I think that I know something about the food and beverage industry, and that's something that was important on the chart. So I want to talk about that for just a couple of minutes. I've seen in my time so many successes, but I've seen many, many more failures in the food and beverage industry. And I believe what you're considering tonight on the food and beverage side is a very high risk for our city. So here's the risk.
A company comes along with a really good deal. This happens, I've seen this happen dozens and dozens of times. It's really, the numbers are all sizzling hot. They offer financial rewards, lots of blue skies, and promises that never come to an end. But then when they get the contract and they start doing the work, they've got to make all those numbers tie together. And don't forget, they're also in it for a profit. And so maybe they don't make a profit for the first year or two as they're working through things. But then they have to start doing that. So then that's when the hard work starts coming in. And I see it all the time. They start shaving things here and cutting things here. Next thing you know, they're laying off a few employees, maybe some of your friends and neighbors. They start paying lower wages to save on their labor costs, and then the big killer is they always start buying a little bit poorer quality food and to make their food costs. So then business begins to plummet down, employee morale is destroyed, and then they start providing really lousy service. Next thing you know, people aren't coming in, the business goes out, and you're looking for a new operator, and the boards on the windows go up. And then the city of Livermore will lose the revenue stream. Is that, as I said earlier, I've seen this happen over and over again. And that's in contrast to what you've heard that Dan and Jean do at Beebs. It's a totally different business in the way they run their business, and that's a really strong, vital stream of revenue for the city of Livermore. So I would be very careful about what you're promised, because I've never seen it work, to be honest. Thank you very much.
Jim Furr, Greg May, and Gene Rogers.
Hi, I'm Jim Furr. As of last week, I'm now president of the Las Positas Men's Golf Club. Everything I would have said has already been said, but I felt important, since I am president of the club, to at least tell you that I'm as positive I can be that everybody in my club would concur with what's going on with the people behind me and what they're saying. On a personal note, last time I spoke to the council was 5 years ago. I was a Livermore resident at that time, and now I live in Tracy. And there's no way I would be driving over the Altamont to play golf if it wasn't for the people at Las Positas and Beebs also. I got golf on that side of the hill. I can go play, but I choose to come over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg May, Gene Rogers, and Bob Funt.
Good evening. My name is Greg May, and although I am originally from Livermore, I've lived in Stockton for the past 19 years. My brother Matt is a manager at Beebs, and he told me about the meeting. I called Dan Bieber and asked if I can come here and speak on their behalf tonight. I've spent the last 30 years of my life in the restaurant business. I've worked all over Northern California, from the East Bay to Sonoma County, up and down the Highway 99 corridor from Sacramento to Turlock. I've worked with great owners, not great owners, very, very well-off owners, and even celebrity chef Guy Fieri opening his restaurant. On top of that, 7 other restaurants I've opened over my career, from casual fare to fine dining. I spent 12 years of my career as a general manager of golf course food and beverage operations, including 10 years at Beebs. I am currently the general manager of the Dust Bowl Brewing Company in Turlock. We're averaging over $500,000 a month in revenue since we opened last July. One thing I hold true in my heart is that I would not be where I am today as an operator without my time I spent working with the Biebers for 10 years. Dan Bieber taught me how to be successful and maintain that success through the best and worst of times. In my career, I've never come across an owner that has figured out like the Biebers have. It's not just the food you put on the plate or the location or the atmosphere. It's the people that you surround yourself with who run your operation day in and day out that make the difference. They have always treated their staff like family, have a genuine care for well-being, and have always been there for their employees. The Beebs brand has been synonymous with not only the Las Positas Golf Course, but the city of Livermore for over 3 decades now, and to change that would be a disservice to this incredible city and its citizens. Beebs has figured out how to make it a great place, not only for the golfer, but the outside patron as well. I can still walk in there today and see the great patrons of Beebs, people that have been there supporting them for the 20-plus years that I've been associated with the company. A lot of these people I consider my close friends, and it's all because of the amazing culture that has been created by the Biebers. I come to you tonight not only as a past employee and a friend of the family, but most importantly as an industry expert in the restaurant industry. If the city decides to go a one operator fee-for-service model, we'll be making a huge mistake. You'll be losing a great institution, a landmark company, and the best owner-operator you could have ever hoped for. The restaurant business, in my opinion, is one of the toughest, and not the toughest in the industry. The razor-thin margins, market fluctuations in pricing, increasing regulations, and cost of living increases make this business that only the strong and willing survive. Beebs has survived some of the most challenging times that we have heard about already, from floods to recessions, but Beebs still stands and is as strong as ever. Why? Because the Beavers are hands down the best owners, operators in the industry, and I was hoping I can help the city understand that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. May. Gene Rogers, Bob Funton, and Tamara Fulton, I'm sorry. Gene Rogers, Bob Fulton, Tamara Fulton.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Rogers. I'm giving up a great speech with a lot of great one-liners, but I'm going to cut to the chase. I want you to know I support everything that has been said about Jeff and Dan and Jean and Mark. These are proven people. They know what they're doing, and they are successfully operating this golf course and restaurant, and everyone said that. My biggest concern, because I used to be captain of the Springtown Ladies Golf Club, which we have now evolved and moved on. However, firsthand experience, I know what it's like to see an inept management and watch a golf course. Now, basically due to poor management, as far as I'm concerned, we lost Springtown. I do not want to see that happen with Las Positas, and I have a real fear that if we go through this process and we have a company that comes in that are very good at marketing themselves, but when it actually comes to the day-to-day operation, they fall short. And we have proven people that know what they're doing and are doing a great job. It just does not make sense to me to risk going out and get an unknown company that may or may not know what they're doing and may or may not be successful. And so I don't want to see another golf course, us lose another golf course in Livermore. I think golf offers something for a lot of from young kids, as you've heard, to seniors. And so I strongly urge you to vote to keep the current managers. They're a known entity and they're successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bob Fulton, Tamara Fulton, Steve and Drew Kim.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Bob Fulton. This is my wife, Tamara. My family's resided at 2964 Kennedy Street since 1957. As council members, you have a challenging task of guiding the city's numerous departments and agencies, and it would be impossible for you to be specialists in all the areas your decisions affect. I'm here to provide you with some input on the Las Positas Golf Course operation decision you're about to make. I've been involved at the golf course since 1966 when it opened. I was a golf professional with the Northern California Golf Association. For many years, I called on golf courses from San Francisco to Santa Barbara as a representative of the Wilson Golf Company, and I feel I know a little bit about golf facilities. We have at Las Positas one of the highest regarded junior golf programs in the United States. They recently won a national championship under the direction of Jeff DeBenedy. They turn out exceptional players, but more importantly, good kids who grow into good citizens. Beebs is the highest volume golf course food and beverage operator in the United States for the size of the banquet facilities you've provided them. Increase the banquet facilities, you might increase revenue. The golf course is made by Corsco, one of the highest regarded course maintenance companies in the United States. Our current course operators are leaders in their respective industries. We have a great facility because each of them strive to be the best in their area of expertise. They don't do a moderate job at three things. Good decisions require good current data and feedback. You've been provided a National Golf Foundation report, which was updated 5 years ago as part of your information. I'm sure Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Greenwood have informed you that in the last 2 years, we've seen drastic changes. We've seen 7 local golf facilities close: Springtown, Sonoma Valley, Roddy Ranch, Deer Ridge, Stevenson Ranch, Diablo Grande, and Pine Meadows in Martinez. None of those were predicted to close in that study. Our weather challenges were also not predicted in that study. If you want a good example of a one-operator facility, go to the Bridges in San Ramon. Try and order some food anytime other than 11 to 2 for lunch, 5 to 9 for dinner. You'll be sent out to the golf course snack cart or to the bar when it opens at 11 for their basket of goodies. That's what we would be getting. I asked the council, would you personally invest your own money in a business Without having current market information and relevant data, I doubt it. I'd suggest you get a new third-party study and take a look at a one-operator model. We're extremely lucky to have the operators we do. You already have 3 of the best in the industry. I don't know why you would be searching for others. I would ask that you ask staff to figure out what's behind all of the administrative costs that the golf course has to deal with. I don't see any city employees out there, ever. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I couldn't have said it any better. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Stephen Drew Kim, Jeff Canellis, and Don Stasa.
I'm Steve Kim. My son Drew will actually be speaking later with the national champions here. Just to let you know, I've been a golfer for many, many years. I can't profess I'm as good as some of these kids here. And I think I've been at Beebs and at Lospo for many, many years, and I've played golf in numerous places. Not well, but played. And I cannot imagine any other place that I would want to play or my child would want to play. And he's played in a lot of courses. And this will probably be his home for the rest of his life, as long as this course still operates. I see a big dilemma here. I'm in the medical profession, and I know what it means to be bought out by management and to do all these things that you guys are dealing with. And I'm not questioning the numbers that you may be seeing, but I do agree with what people are hearing tonight, is that golf is struggling as an industry. There's not much out there. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So obviously, at this point, I do see that there is some issues that you're going to have to resolve, whether Las Positas or even Livermore should even have a golf course. And if you feel strongly, as I do, that golf is part of the Livermore fabric and golf should maintain an identity in Livermore, you should look at the 3 people that you're dealing with right now and find out, can you really get something better? And I believe strongly, and I've been in this my profession for many, many years, there is some loyalty that you're going to lose. You're going to lose quite a bit more than you realize. I think you could get a management and they can promise you a lot, but in the end, you may get nothing. And then you may realize the regrets later when you no longer have something that you've had in your community for decades. So you're potentially losing an identity that you've created, not just for junior golfers, for senior golfers, for people who come to habitate this facility. I think you're going to make a big, big decision that you need to really analyze carefully. I agree with whoever said this earlier. You should get a third party and look at these numbers currently. I do it all the time. And what I saw in 2012 is not what's going on in medicine in 2017. And you have no control over what's happened with the economy, with the weather. You're in a truly great situation right now, I think, with this management, if you continue to let them maybe renegotiate with you this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Canellis, Don Stasa, Dan Bieber.
Hi, my name is Jeff Canellis. I'm here tonight to support Beebs, and I wanted to shed some light on some of the unintended consequences of having a change of operators. A lot of these unintended consequences revolve around qualitative things. They have a big impact on quantitative things, sales, bottom lines, but it's hard to put a number on them themselves. It's been mentioned that someone mentioned that Beebs was an institution in Livermore. They've been there for over 30 years. And you build up a lot of those qualitative items, and I'd like to touch on some of them. I think the main one, or the one that's the most obvious, is brand recognition. When you've been somewhere that long, your name gets recognized as well as the brand. And I think there's a lot of ribbons that dangle off of a name recognition or a brand name. And so when someone says Beebs, you don't go, oh yeah, I know Beebs. You say, Beebs, what a great place to go for lunch. Beebs, what a great place to go after a golf game. Beebs, what a great place to go after you watch the kids play a soccer match. That's a fun, friendly, family-safe atmosphere. And what a great place to go for socializing. And all of those things come with name recognition, and then there's those little fingers, those tentacles, over time go out into other areas close by, other counties, and you build a reputation that's regional. And when you change the operator, those are gone. The other thing they have at Beebs is they have a generation, truly a generation of loyal customers, and the database that goes along with that. So that's a great marketing tool for what they call the low-hanging fruit. Once you change operators, gone. There's a
Finish the thought.
Okay, yeah. There's a positive social media reviews right now. Rarely do you see anything negative about Beebs. You change operators, gone. You have to start anew. And there's also an intimate institutional knowledge that comes along with being in a place for a long time. And you take those institutional things that one size fits all about the success in any business, and you micro it depending on the arena, the area, the building that you're in. In this case,
if you could please wind up your comments.
Oh boy, I'm not even close.
We've got to be fair to everybody.
I know.
And your name is? Don Stason. Don, okay.
Thank you, Don. Anyway, about the intimate institutional knowledge, it's something that's like a veteran. It's something that comes from being in a place a long time. Not only the people that come in that you take care of, but the individual characteristics of the building itself. And then, that's gone once you change operator. The community relationships that have been developed, and there are a lot, and people have touched on them in terms of charitable contributions and such. Well, those relationships and support, they're gone when you change operators. And to me, the most significant one is that at Beebs, currently you have a local owner-operator on site. And you can underline owner, because with an owner you get someone that has a lot more concern over the operation. And I think the old adage is nobody washes a rental car before they turn it in. It's because you don't own it. Ownership is not a job, ownership is a commitment. And then I'd like to take a look at the rent dollars. From what I understand, the rent dollars that Beebs gives to the city are among the highest in the industry, and virtually no risk. If you go to a single operator, that particular market plan, you in essence get into the restaurant business, and you hire someone to manage that restaurant for you. And it takes into a higher risk arena. I mean, another way to make that point would be to say, if I came to you and said, hey, I got a great restaurant in downtown Livermore, successful, making a lot of money, can we use some public funds to buy that restaurant, and all the profits will go into the general fund? I mean, that's a rhetorical thing, but I'm pretty sure the response would be thumbs down on even considering that. But you are getting into the restaurant business. And I would ask that the council give some consideration to these unintended consequences, especially in relationship to the added risk you get when you go to a single operator business model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Bieber, Gene Bieber, and Barry Gordon.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Barry Gordon. By way of introduction, I was the Director of Arts, Recreation, and Community Services for the City of Walnut Creek, and was responsible for bringing in Corsco to operate the Boundary Oak Golf Course. Prior to that, I had a 25-year career in the restaurant industry, in the chain restaurant industry. The last 15 of which were as senior executives, so I feel I'm somewhat qualified to be telling you the kinds of things that I want to tell you. As far as Corsco is concerned, I don't think you'll find a better operator. We went through an RFP, we interviewed several national and local and regional golf course operating companies, and it was clear to us that the only one that we knew could do what we wanted to do at Boundary Oak was Corsco. And I think you want an operator where the founder, the president, and the senior executives visit regularly, not a national company where those people live across the country. The Boundary Oak has very similar rounds in revenue to Las Positas. The total revenue picture is a little bit different because their revenue on the restaurant side is not as high as the revenue is here in Livermore. But it throws off the same amount of dollars to the enterprise fund. It throws off the same amount of dollars, which are used to turn right back into improving the golf course, which is a little bit different than it is here in the city of Livermore. Regarding food and beverage, you've heard this before, I won't belabor it. If you go to another operator, you will not be able to replicate Beebs. There is no operator that I know of that can deliver a restaurant, because food and beverage is ancillary to golf and most other operators. They're not a restaurant. You've heard that today. And so a couple other things. You have a bird in the hand. Staff failed to mention that in the negotiations, they came as close to a master agreement as you could come, where Corsco would operate the golf and the maintenance and subcontract out to Beeb's restaurant. I don't think you'll find a master agreement better than that. And then finally, Mayor, to quote you earlier today, you said an enterprise is supposed to operate as an enterprise. And it looks to me, when I look at the numbers of this enterprise fund, it's a cash grab for the general fund. Because over and above the city staff, you pay the city gets close to $400,000 that it doesn't need to get over and above the money. And I could itemize it, but I don't want to take up more of your time. It's a cash grab by the general fund. You have a bird in the hand. Take advantage of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Dan Bieber, Gene Bieber, and Mike Olson.
Well, good evening, everyone. Dan and Jean Bieber own Beeb Sports Bar and Grill. I'd first like to thank you, gentlemen, up front for listening to everybody this evening. And I really want to thank everybody back here for your support tonight. Thank you. It means a lot. We've been operating since 1984. I also want you to understand we operate 6 other restaurant facilities at public golf courses. They're all ranked in the top 10 in the country when they're as far as revenue is concerned here in the Greater Bay Area. And we also run 2 golf operations for the city of Roseville. We're both local. I grew up here in Livermore. Grew up out in South Pasco Road on a little farm out by the Rad Lab in Sandia. I graduated from Livermore High School and started playing golf out here when I started golf in 1967. I've got a 50-year relationship with Las Positas in the city. Beebs was our first business opportunity. It's very near and dear to our heart. This has been a very emotional process. But Gene and I are very proud of what we've accomplished. We've maintained the feel of a local family-run business. One of the oldest restaurants in Livermore, as you heard earlier. There's only a couple, a Donut Wheel, Foster's Freeze, John's Charburgers, and I think the Yin Yin. So we're standing in good company. I've got a friend in this business. It's his hard business to be successful in, and he likes to say this, and I love to quote this: "The degree of difficulty in running a successful restaurant is just above walking on water and just below entering a new number in your cell phone with your elbow." It's very, very, very true, and it's funny. We're also proud of our long-standing relationship and partnership with the city of Livermore, the relationships we've built in the community, the brand that we've created, the reputation and goodwill that we like to think that we've established here in town. And we're proud that in such a difficult golf market, our restaurant revenues have continued to grow over the last few years. It was mentioned earlier by our general manager, Jen Solero, the staff longevity is incredible. The rate of attrition is low. The people that work for us, as you may have heard earlier, our 3 core managers have 57 years of combined experience and work at Beebs and Livermore. We're also proud of the environment and the culture we've helped create for our staff and guests. But we're also proud of our entire facility. I'd like to share some accomplishments. Some of them have been mentioned this evening, but I know I may be repeating some, but I think it's very important about the operations of our facility and very germane to tonight's conversation. #1 junior golf program, winning the national championship for the 2nd time in 5 years on the Golf Channel, recently in the NCJ magazine. The #2 rated foot golf program in Northern California. It's added incredible additional green fee revenues, as well as it's brought an entirely new demographic out to Las Positas who are exposed to all of the golf operations and the restaurant. Mark Condos, Superintendent, Livermore Golf Management, aka Corsco, the #1 golf course superintendent in 2016.
I give my time to Dan.
Mark was awarded the #1 overall national award for environmental leadership for superintendents for all courses in the country, private and public. Livermore Golf Management, Corsco, in 2015 and 2016 received the National Public Environmental Leader Golf Award for their environmental stewardship. And Beebs is acknowledged as the highest revenue generating restaurant at a public golf course in the country, guaranteeing maximum rents returns to the city which exceed industry standards. For a municipal golf course, this resume is second to none. Gene and I are proud to be a part of the Las Positas team, continuing year in and year out to provide quality services to our Las Positas golfers and our local communities. We're proud to be a part of the culture that invites and promotes long-lasting relationships with our staff, our guests, and our partners. Our team feels we have a good story. I think it's fair to say we're qualified expert, and some of us are the best in our respective professions. I'm going to repeat this financial point. Our team is currently throwing off $800,000 of operational profit on average for the last 4 years, which is outperforming the marketplace. We've done the research, 10 different golf courses from 20 to 60% more than other local market facilities. And I'd like to throw up a little caution tape and suggest some things for the council to consider. If you're considering changing operators, the risk of the unknown looms very large. Transitioning to another company and another operator may take 12 to 18 months for them to become familiar with the property and get up to speed. In such a delicate marketplace, is it worth the risk? Mr. Canellis mentioned unintended consequences, and I ask you, all of the value of brand, goodwill, and reputation, what is that value, particularly when it's gone? If you change operators in the restaurant, 2 very significant things will be triggered if you're looking at a master lease or master agreement. The first is that there is a real hard dollar conversion cost to the city that hasn't been mentioned this evening, and it happens in the restaurant. The city is going to have to come in, and they're going to have to fix the HVAC system. They're going to have to buy all the furniture, the fixtures, the equipment. They're going to have to buy all of our inventory product, and that's just a few of the things. In my professional guesstimate, it's going to cost somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 for the city to come in and convert that facility once the operators change. Secondly, the business model changes. You need to understand if the business model changes, it's moving from an entrepreneurial model, which is what you have now, where we take the risk and the city receives guaranteed rents, to a fee-for-service model, where the city will incur all of the risk and the new management company receives a guaranteed fee to manage the city budget. I hope the city gives me the time to finish what I have to say. Thank you very much. So the new management company receives a guaranteed fee to manage the city's budget, which puts the city officially in the restaurant business. As Bob said earlier, I'm not sure that the city wants to risk their public funds on being in the restaurant business. Yes, the city would receive 100% of the revenue, but they will also be responsible for 100% of the expenses, and then, of course, take on 100% of the risk. I'd also like you to consider that it's possible that the golf market has changed so significantly in the last few years that we need to begin adjusting all of our expectations to a new and different paradigm, both philosophically and financially. Our team hopes today we have demonstrated the value of our expertise, our commitment to Las Positas, and we hope our financial performance is seen in a new light, actually in the light of day. And I'd like to thank council and staff for allowing us the time to share our thoughts and concerns. And we appreciate all the support here tonight for our facility at Las Positas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Olson, Jeff Berriatua, and Corrigan Willis. Mr. Mr. Olson.
Good evening. Thank you. I have no doubt that serving on the council, as you all are, is a difficult job. Having to deal with any number of disparate issues day to day, some to many of which you have little to no familiarity. And you must use your best judgment, but rely heavily on input from staff and consultants. On that note, you have been led to believe that the enterprise fund is broken. But I submit to you that the fund has been poorly managed. Yes, the enterprise fund is losing money. The golf operations are not. At first blush, that doesn't make sense. The operator has no control over the many costs that are loaded on the operations. By my calculations, the fixed indirect expenses loaded on the enterprise fund amount to almost $1 million annually. I grant you that some of those expenses reflect debt service for monies borrowed and for capital projects at the course, but most of them have no detail explaining how they relate to enterprise operations. Like anticipated general fund loan of $50,000 a year, city administrative surcharge of over $232,000 a year, rent to airport enterprise fund of $99,000 per year, and there are more. The city is presumably a partner with the operators. And yet dedicated staff have spent no time on the course, nor heard from by their partners, the operators. Imagine that your partner goes radio silent. The dedicated, and I use that word hesitantly, I believe stayed away on purpose because I believe they wanted your operation, the enterprise fund, to fail, with plans to create their own fiefdom.
Mr. Olson, if you could finish up your comments.
I'm going to be a minute.
Anybody else? Pardon me? Your name, sir?
It's Mike Lyle, but I wrote it down as
I'm told all of the public golf courses in the greater Bay Area, at least those that have survived, reduced their indirect costs relating to golf courses, relating to their golf course operation expenses to zero. Some leaving just a token amount. And they have been doing this for years. With all due respect, you have been duped. Either your policies have not kept up with the times and need review, or your personnel has lost focus and needs council redirection. The operators have made every effort to get along and work with their enterprise partners, and that is why the story behind the story, the elephant in the room, has not been recognized. And yet negotiations for continued operations have been conducted by the same staff. That doesn't add up. Staff has hung their hat on the National Golf Foundation 2012 report, concluding that absent substantive managerial or operational changes, the enterprise would lose $1 million over the succeeding 5 years. I agree with them. I agree with their conclusions. You, the council, should consider directing your staff managers, to change their tune and become a real partner. And operationally, there's little doubt that cost allocations need to be reevaluated and dramatically reduced. One of the council members said to one of the speakers earlier, the council did the last, just one second. The council did the last go-around what the community wanted, not necessarily what they wanted. But the council hasn't, in my mind, been involved over these last 5 years. The community didn't say to the council, leave these people alone, let staff make decisions absent your input. You need to be involved.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson.
I'm not done.
Excuse me. You have had not only your time, another gentleman's time, and then additional time on top of that. I'm trying to be fair to everybody.
I have one more paragraph to read, and it's very important.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're
had
kidding.
Double the time. Now, if somebody else would care to give up their time, this is highly unusual. Okay, we're not playing that game, Jeff. You already exceeded your time.
I could have been done by now.
Okay, who's going to give up their time?
My wife, Tamara Fulton, did not use hers.
You were both up there. You know what? We're not playing this game. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm trying to be fair to everybody. Everybody had 2 minutes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Allman.
I suggest at a minimum the council appoint a subcommittee with several of its members to resume those negotiations. I'm confident you'll get a better understanding of the numbers and come to a mutual understanding with the operators. I know the Biebers and the De Benedettis and Mike Sharp of Corsco, and they're good people. They have great standing in the golf world, and they're ethical and they're successful. No doubt in my mind, any other city would welcome their them as partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Jeff Berriatua, Corrigan Willis, and Gwen Lewis, I believe, already spoke, unless there's a second Gwen Lewis. I have 2 cards. So, okay.
One of me.
All right. Jeff Berriatua, Corrigan Willis, and Connie Copps.
Hello, my name is Corrigan Willis. I'm the department chair of the physical education department at Granada High School and a teacher there. Granada has been bringing their students to the pros at Las Positas for the last 20 years. About 300 kids a year, so that comes out to about 6,000 kids. And this is a different clientele than you get from the program, youth program, because these are kids that are in general PE. So you get a full cross-section of kids, and it's an invaluable program. The kids love it. It's a minimal fee for them, and these guys, Scott and Jeff, put everything into it and teach these guys a lot of stuff. I think it would be a shame if we lost these guys. Not only do they teach them basic golf, but ethics and how it relates to the real world and the business world and stuff like that. And I think the kids get a lot out of that portion of it. So I think that's all I have to say about it. But again, Granada PE really values this program. It's an off-campus enrichment program that it's kind of a different angle than what we've been hearing here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Berriatua, Drew Kim, I believe we had Mr. Kim speak earlier, and Connie Copps. So Jeff Berriatua, Drew Kim, Connie Copps. Connie Copps. Connie Copps. Oh, are you Drew Kim? Okay. Your father was up earlier.
Yes. Hi, I'm Drew. I'm from Pleasanton and a member of the junior program at Las Positas. I've known Jeff for over 5 years now, and every lesson that I've had with him, we talk. We start out by talking. He asks me how I'm doing in school, how I'm managing, because he has a really great and kind heart. He cares about his students as though they were his own son or daughter. And if you go out to Las Positas on any given day, you can see the program of juniors, and you can see how much it's grown and how much fun they're having. Last year, Jeff took me and a group of kids of juniors he gave us an adventure of a lifetime. He took us out to Arizona, where we played the national championship. We won the championship, which was great, but more importantly, we had a great ton of fun, and I had fun, the team had fun, and everything that was possible was because of Jeff DeBenedetti. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
We have a picture from
Oh, very cool.
National. This is our team.
Very cool. Congratulations. Congratulations. And we are. County Cops, Ine Rogi, and Bill Rovid.
One of the things I really like about Las Positas Golf Course were the golf lessons I took through a man named Stan, and I have had other people help golf, but the kids it's a dynamic sport. I think part of the reason that golf is like going by the wayside has a lot to do with incidentals in the market right now. Kids right now, it's very trendy for kids and adults to be glued to their phone. And golf is a really good sport. I know a lot of our city staff aren't golfers, from the people that I've talked to. And so I can understand sometimes how you might have, your own opinions of it, and they might not be, I want to say, just educated. If you're not a golfer, and I don't claim to be a major golfer. My husband golfed every single week, every Sunday at Springtown. And I think that if you're a golfer, you're a golfer. And it's a good sport, and I think every city should have a golf course or two. And I think that one of the things that might bring golf back a little bit is a little branding. If you really think about it, that ping pong table was nothing for the longest time. You put 6 cups of beer at the end of that ping pong table, and it changes the tune. It's all about getting excited about it, marketing about it. My son in Livermore, he was on the middle school golf team. He came home from college last week and brought his clubs to golf with Dad. Unfortunately, they didn't get around to it, but it really is a good sport. And I do beg to differ with some of the charts, the information. Again, I know I'm not sure how long Darren's been on the scene with Livermore, but your report goes back to 1966, and there were 2 golf courses, and some of the information has really been has overlapped. But think of the jobs this is creating, and be positive about golf. Think win-win and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Copps. Ine Rogue, Bill Rovid, Chad Johnston.
Hello, I'm Ine from San Ramon, and I've been going to Las Positas for the past 5 years. Through the years, Jeff has helped me perfect my swing like no other coach before. He is a wonderful person to be around and an amazing coach. As I took this, an RFP is going to remove Jeff's junior programs. His junior program is exponentially expanding, recruiting even more juniors every year. Coming from first-hand experience, his different junior programs pose the ideal community for junior golfers all over the Bay who are curious with golf. His programs have helped expand the game of golf within juniors with all his creative ways of teaching. Now that Las Positas has won 2 national championships, one with a jersey that I've played in, and a runner-up title, even more junior golfers will become interested in the sport of golf, and they will join one of the best junior programs in this area. This will raise the annual revenue with the addition of more juniors enrolled in his golf programs. Without the presence of his extremely helpful and useful junior programs, the community of junior golf will plummet in the Bay. According to a famous Golf Channel commentator, Trip Eisenhower, I actually have a video of his, of a comment of his in our 2-hour special.
It's really incredible, Trip, when you think 5 years it's always been Georgia and California in the national championship match. And I think that speaks to the programs that these states have put up and why they're delivering these great teams.
So that was just a little preview of how we do have our experience and how the junior programs have been good in this area. So what I'm saying is Jeff definitely played a crucial role in developing and helping junior golfers pursue their passion. I have no knowledge in this area of talk, but speaking on the behalf of all junior golfers here, we hope that you could extend the contract indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill Rovid, Chad Johnston.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Chad Johnston, and these are my 2 sons. I'm a Livermore resident, and I've been here living on and off here for the past 12 years. I run operations for an $80 million a year construction company, so I understand profit and loss statements as well as income plan versus actual. But I hope you guys are analyzing Las Positas and the services it presents is solely based on profit and loss, because that whole facility out there does a lot more for this community than what should be judged just based on a business. Beebs is something that we've been able to experience as a family, that we, both my sons play travel ball, and we go to Danville, Tassar Valley, Dublin, Pleasanton, San Ramon. There's no other place like Beebs except family members and teammates coming into these teams after games to come in and have a meal together or have a meeting together. It just doesn't happen in their towns like it does at Beebs, and so I hope you guys take that in consideration. As far as you guys talked about wanting to increase revenue and make it a break-even course out there, we already have high-end courses. We already have Wente. We already have Poppy Ridge. But either one of those places is going to allow, both my sons to go take lessons over the summer for $130. I would spend a whole lot more to the price point that I could not afford to, teach my kids how to play golf. And Las Positas takes that on, and they do it year after year. And so because of what they offer out there, both my sons now, began playing golf. So hope that you take that in consideration before you just try and turn this over to a different management company that is only going to look at making a profit and not look at what that facility out there does for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Bill Rovid. Bill Rovid or Jeff Berry Atua. Okay. We got through it. Thank you very much. Give yourselves a hand, seriously. That was well done. We got through all that. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the hearing and now bring it back to the council. Any comments? Well, what you could start down at the end here.
Yeah, where do you start? A lot of information. As I said before, I'm not a golfer. I never have been a golfer. But I do support programs that help kids at almost any level of athletics. And I do have some experience in business with some of those big companies. I had a great aunt. It's a bad story that probably doesn't belong here, but she had a nice big house on the Quail Lodge golf course in Carmel Valley. It is a really good course. Clint Eastwood used to hit balls onto their patio all the time. But they changed management and went to a more global type of, rather than local control over their golf course. And they aren't a public golf course by any means. And I think when we think that what our last commenter, in fact, made a lot more sense than almost everything else put together. And there were a lot of really good comments tonight, really strong ones. But this is a public golf course where kids can learn to play golf, where kids aren't out getting into things that maybe they shouldn't be getting into, that if you want to play golf, you've shown any interest. Currently, there isn't anybody out there on the circuit that's anybody really wants to emulate, right? I mean, there's no Tiger Woods out on the scene. It's drawing people in. So golf is in a situation where we're looking for places to gain more access to the sport at a price we can afford. I can't play it. They don't make 12-inch drivers. I don't know what it is. Hitting from a wheelchair. It's just one of those things. But I think when I went out there, the course is well taken care of. It's well maintained. People seem to be happy. Beebs serves a number of community purposes out there, as I've spoken before the Rotary Morning Club out there a couple of times. I'm not so sure, and again, it all comes down to the financial part when you look at it. That's another thing we have to consider. And sitting out here spending your money, are we doing it right for the community? And if we're listening to everybody in this room, we are. We'd like to think that there was a point, the course operators told us that they're way ahead in their numbers. The city is telling us staff's telling us that they're behind. I don't know where the truth lies, and that's what I want to get to. I want to make sure that there is a truth there, and until there is, I'm comfortable with the current situation. But I would like to see the city and the operators get together and hash out those numbers and find out why there's such difference. Believe me, you bring them to a banker, you're going to find out where the differences are and resolve them quickly. That's what I used to do. If there are phony numbers on there from either side, you'll spot them in no time. Mr. De Benedetti is a legend in the golf world here in Northern California, and I just can't imagine bringing in an out-of-the-area operator to do this. But we have to consider that we're playing with city money here. If indeed we are suffering a loss, then we want to find out, I'd like to find out where it is, where it's coming from. Well, why aren't more people coming out there? Is there a marketing plan that could be put in place to encourage more people to come out there? I do know that with the high schools playing out there and all kinds of youth leagues and senior leagues, we serve a really good sliver of the population, right? I think we do. And I'd kind of like to see that continue in its current format, quite honestly.
So the first thing I'd like to compliment is all the speakers for their absolute loyalty to the group of people that are currently operating Las Positas. I don't think we've, at least my experience, which is not that long, but my experience here is I've never seen a group so behind a certain group of people. So I admire the quality of the work that the groups have done, whether it's the Beavers, De Benedetti, and Corsco, for the dedication and the quality of product that they've put out there. I am worried about, so I have a few things that came up that I made some notes about. And I will say that the other thing that I wanted to mention in that regard is that almost all the comments, with a few exceptions, almost all the comments had to do with the quality of the professionals that work out there, and not about the issue that we're dealing with as a council, and that is the funding. And can the city continue to support the negative balance that we're seeing from Las Positas? And that's a concern, as Councilmember Coomer brought up, of mine. I mean, we're supposed to represent the whole community and not just the people that use Las Positas golf course. As sad as that may be to this group of people here today. So one of the questions I have, and maybe Mr. Greenwood can help me out here, is how relevant is the study from 5 years ago, this was brought up earlier by one of the speakers. How relevant is this study that NGF did in 2012 to today?
I mean, I think the speakers have a point. Has the golf market changed? Yes.
Sure.
But the concept remains the same, that having an additional entity that has to take a profit reduces the amount of money available for the enterprise. A couple of the speakers mentioned some courses, Boundary Oaks, that Corsco operates. They operate that as a single operator, not as a joint with a separate restaurant operator. To us, I think the ultimate test of the market is going to be the RFP. And remember, the RFP doesn't commit us to anything. We're not changing operators by putting this out.
Right.
We're shopping to see what the market will offer.
Right.
And I would say that you can spend time and money updating a study, but until you put out the RFP, you're not going to know. You can go to 5 real estate agents who will tell you what your house is worth, but until you put it on the market and get an offer on it, that's when you really know.
Another question is, there was no, I mean, there's some later speakers spoke about some of the indirect costs. These were all known by the groups 5 years ago, right? I mean, there's no surprise. And in fact, didn't the city cut the indirect cost by $100,000 at the beginning and tied it to the consumer price index so that there would be no surprises?
Correct. Yeah, the original pro forma listed all the city costs in explicit detail. Council then directed us to reduce it by $100,000, so we took the total from $1,062,000 down to $962,000, and that's the number that was CPI'd up over the years. In 2016, the indirect expenses were $991,000, when by the formula they were allowed to be $1,037,000, a $47,000 savings. Projected for 2017, our expenses are going to be $900,000 when they're allowed to be $1,069,000, another $169,000 savings. During this time, we've looked at the finance department, our administrative services, has done another cost allocation study. The overhead charge that's in there has gone down by about $50,000 as a result of that study. So staff has done, I think, what we could to alleviate some of the overhead costs. Some of the debt was refinanced to try and get that number down as low as we could. But you're right, those costs were all known at the time that those numbers were put together, and we've been able to achieve those.
Let's see, another thing that I heard from at least a couple of people was that is being poorly managed, and also they never saw any staff out there. But so the point that we've made over the course of this is the city not to provide management there, that it was up to the operators to provide the management, and there's no doubt you haven't seen city staff out there because that's not their job. Am I right about that?
You're correct. I mean, when we've turned over the entire course to basically management operations, there isn't a role for city staff day to day. Now, we do meet with them about monthly. We get all their reports. Finance looks over those. City staff look over those. We cut checks and lease payments on behalf of the operator. So there's a fair amount of staff work that still happens. But no, they wouldn't have seen us out at the course because that's not our role.
What about the comment that it's a cash grab for the general fund?
I don't view it that way. I mean, I believe everything on the list that was in the pro forma are legitimate city costs. If you take those away from the golf course, they would have to be allocated somewhere else to the general fund, which would equal a subsidy. I mean, basically, if we're $1 million short after 5 years, we're subsidizing $200,000 a year over the 5 years of the contract.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Werner?
Just a couple of preliminary thoughts. So as I mentioned earlier, I was here 5 years ago, and it's a very similar circumstance, although there are some differences. And I think, at the beginning, before we had all the public comment, you fellow council members were wondering, how did we get to extending it as opposed to just going? I think you have an appreciation for how we got to extending it because, as you've seen, there is a lot of passion and support for the current operation. So there are a couple of things here, and maybe I'll say this as well, because one person mentioned it. As council members, we may or may not know something about this, but I'll just say is that my own background trained financial analyst, been a business appraiser in some cases, and understand what the financials are here. I mean, I know how to understand it, but I have to tell you, I'm not sure I have all the facts in front of me in the way I would want to see it in order to make a financial decision with respect to this. So I'll just say that. And typically in business, you get wrapped around the axle when you start talking about indirect allocated costs. And what we have here are multiple kinds of these things. Some of them are some way arbitrary allocations, and others that we call indirect are actually very direct. So I'll just tell you the bottom line where I'm at is that, well, maybe it's not get there in a second. The other thing to think about, and it's real clear from the business experience I've got, that this issue of goodwill that a company builds through an operation is a real asset, and you do put it at risk when you do a transition. So it by no means is obvious that you can go from that, as was pointed out, from an entrepreneurial model to a fee-for-service and maintain what you have in the goodwill. So this is not a slam dunk. And I also have seen multiple times where people put pro forma projections together and pull the wool over your eyes, and you go for it, and then you're in trouble. And frankly, the city has been vulnerable to that in a couple of times in the past. So I'm skeptical about pro formas coming out from an external party that's going to do something. So I do believe it took me a long time to understand the concept of an intangible asset like goodwill, but I do understand it, and that's a very valuable thing, and you don't mess with that lightly. So I also agree with that. So, but we do have a fundamental question here, because the golf business is declining, has been for years. You see it going around. So the question really is, how much of a subsidy is required by the city in order to keep this thing going? And you have to get straight on that. And then the other question, the larger question, is this the business of the city at all? And we do have a parks district. So there are real things here. You from the presentations tonight, it's clear that this is very valuable to a significant portion of the residents. And so, to what extent should it be subsidized, if a subsidy is required? So I don't know how we address those questions, and you won't really get those answered by just putting an RFP out there. So there are a lot of factors to consider here. I think everything that I've observed over the years I've been here is that it's a good operation. It's by no means obvious to me how much more money could be generated by changing operators, and there is a risk there could be less. So I don't know. It's a little disconcerting to me that the numbers are in dispute like this, because, as Councilmember Coomer said, I mean, it should be there, and if you do it at the bank. So my recommendation is that we do form a subcommittee of the council, and we kind of work this through. We don't have a lot of time because things are coming up, and we do have to deal with whether we extend it or not. But I'd like a little more clarity on the numbers and what we really expect to achieve and why by going through an RFP. I'm not saying I wouldn't go there, but I don't have a draft of the RFP now, and I'd like to see that draft before we think about actually issuing it. So the question is, the way I would look at this is, if the operation shut down, I mean, the cleanest way to understand is what's the net obligation of the city, because there are costs that have been incurred that have to be paid back. So that's the debt service. On the other hand, the rent to the FAA goes away, but that's considered an indirect fixed cost. It's not a fixed cost. It's an incremental cost depending on the operation of the business. So we're not completely clear on how to think about this at the marginal decision of, do I continue operating or not? So I'd like to see this laid out is, what's the incremental, let's say you start with it's shut down, then what's the impact to the city? Then you say, oh, let's operate it. We incur additional costs. What is then, is there a net cash thrown off, because we've heard there is, against those obligations that would be incurred if the thing were shut down anyway, right? So we'll find out, is this a cash cow or a cash grab, or what is it, right? But that's the way to lay this out, and I would like to see it laid out in that way, because that's the way I'm familiar with doing a straightforward financial analysis. And I would like to see the subcommittee do that. Then once we understand what the true subsidy is, then we can tee up the question of, is that appropriate for the city? And the other thing that I'll just, one other impression I've got here is, fundamentally what we're talking about is saying that there's more money needed to cover the costs here. The only place this money can come from is from the restaurant operations, really, from what I've heard, for the most part. And the other question is that reasonable? Because we've heard that restaurant operations, as we all know, are very marginal. So there's a bunch of things we don't know. We've also heard that maybe the rent's the highest, maybe it's the lowest. What is the rent compared to comparable operations at other golf courses? So I'd like to really see the comparable data here. So that's my thoughts. My recommendation is that we form a subcommittee of the council. We delve into this. We come to a conclusion as to what facts are, to the best we know, so that we don't have this kind of conversation in a meeting like this with one side saying this and that. We agree on what the facts are. We come together with the operators and the staff and that subcommittee, and we say, okay, this is the decision. And then that subcommittee reports out, this is what it is. Then we tee up what the policy decision is. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, my comments. We went through over 40 people tonight, and yet in glowing praise for all of the operators, and I don't question the great job that the operators are doing. But there was no suggestion as to how the city doesn't continue to subsidize the operation of the golf course. Somewhere along the line, the city's got to spin off between $200,000 and $400,000 every year to support the golf course enterprise, and everybody's doing a great job down there. Is there some way that the city does not end up subsidizing the golf course between $200,000 and $400,000 a year? And we didn't. I didn't get any suggestions like that, but the question did come up: how good it was the 2012 study, the NGF study, and gee, it's 5 years old. It needs to be redone. Well, what we found was that in 2012, when we went through the pro forma, we were told that if we didn't change the operation, if the operation stayed the same, the city would lose about $1 million in 5 years. And they were within about $3,000 from what I've seen, that we lost about $997,000 over the 5 years that NGF projected. So it seems to me that their projections in 2012 were right on the money. And so yes, golf has changed dramatically over the last few years. Does that mean that we're going to be making more money or less money? there was the incurred debt. The city took out a substantial loan to improve the golf course so that we would increase the play. And now we're saddled with that debt service. The FAA kind of came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden now we've got to make payments to support the airport enterprise. But this is an enterprise, and as such, somewhere along the line, as the Councilmember Warner pointed out, has the landscape changed where this is going to be an ongoing subsidy from the city of Livermore continuously? Several people said, well, just extend the contract indefinitely. Well, that means that every year the city is going to be having to subsidize the operation and the capital expenses close to $400,000 a year. Well, okay, so that's $2 million over 5 years. That's a fair chunk of change. And if you talk to the city at large, would they rather that $5 million be spent on public safety, on police or fire? Those are the decisions, as Councilmember Carling pointed out, we've got to be responsible for the whole community. And we saw that when there was really no hope for Springtown Golf Course, and it was an ongoing subsidy, that the decision was made that there would be better uses for that money throughout the city. I'm not suggesting that, but somewhere along the line, we've got to figure out, is there another model? There's no question that they're running excellent programs out there. There's no question that the city is heavily subsidizing this. The numbers that I've seen, this is not a cash grab. We don't have staff down there because we've saved $500,000 over the last couple of management changes down there. $500,000 a year in savings because we have allowed the operators complete control over the golf course. What hasn't changed is those expenses that the city has to cover. And we're trying to find a model that allows the enterprise to act as an enterprise. I agree with Councilmember Warner, and we just happen to have one of the members of the Finance Committee speak to this, that he would like to have a little more in-depth look into the finances. Yes, we've heard there's $800,000 operational profit, but on the other hand, there are significant fixed costs between the FAA and the debt service that we're still hobbled with. So I would suggest perhaps doing a parallel track that we, as the Councilmember Warner pointed out, we haven't seen the RFP, but to generate an RFP to perhaps see if in fact there is a model. If there isn't, we're not bound by putting on an RFP, but let's just ask the question. We didn't ask the question 4 years ago, and the pro forma did not operate as we had hoped. So as Councilmember Carling pointed out, how did we get here? Well, you just saw how we got here. So let's pursue the RFP, and at the same time, so that we can all get assurance on the numbers, we refer it to the Finance Committee, which we already have in place. It's Councilmember Spadowski, Vice Mayor Spadowski, and Councilmember Coomber. And so we pursue a parallel track. We're not committed to anything except to see if there is a better solution. And absolutely, the current contractors, I'm sure that they'll submit. Mike's kind of nodding his head there that that they'll be a part of this, and we're not committing to anything except committing to see if there's a better way to do this. And I think we can get assurances on the numbers, and at the same time, so we don't waste time, we can pursue an RFP. And it's not committing us to anything except finding the best model that we possibly can, and it's still going to come back for consideration. So we're not really deciding anything except getting a better look at the numbers and seeing if there's a better model that we can pursue. So, what's the?
I had a quick question. When did the FAA thing come into play?
During the remodel of the golf course and the extension of
That was just what? How many years ago was that?
That was in 2011.
Okay. So, where I still come out on this, just given the passion of the audience and everything else and what's going on, I'd just like to spend a little. I'm okay with the parallel track, but not starting them simultaneously. I'd really like to have the subcommittee come back with, okay, this is, Councilmember Coomer said, what's the truth about these numbers? Let's have that in front of us before we make this decision. That's where I would go. And doesn't have to be a long time, but let's just come back with that before we actually launch the RFP. We're not talking, we're just maybe less than a month time delay, but let's just have that, because I just don't want to go there now, given what I've heard, till I have a little more clarity. That's where I'm at.
Question for staff: what are the time constraints that we might be bumping up against if there's a delay?
Well, actually, all of the agreements have the ability to be extended month to month, and all of that. All of them have that in there. So, for such an important decision and all of that, I would not think that you have to hold hard on the January 31st, and boy, we got to get it done. Now, to get done by January 31st, yes, you are in a tough, but if you decided to go the route that you're talking, if it started to push up against that, you could extend the current agreements.
Yeah, so I think that's where I'm coming from, is that we're not jammed on time. This pro forma stuff is, it's really, who's got the best crystal ball. But I think what's pretty clear is that, and if you look at the numbers there, and then the other thing that I think maybe we could have realized a few years ago is that typical business plans, you always, it's the hockey stick, right? I lose money in the first year, and then I make it up in the end, right? I mean, that's just, everybody does that, and it's not overly good. But the blue, I mean, and really it ought to be a red color, is disconcerting, right? So we got to deal with that, and we really have to know what it is and find out how big it is. But I do believe that we go back to decisions that locked us into some money, like the remodel. Maybe we were hoping on that one, right? Maybe that wasn't the wisest, but since that was done, that did incur a fixed cost. That's a big deal. The FAA is an incremental cost to operate the course. You don't operate the course, you don't have that. So that's not a fixed cost, and it's not indirect. It's variable and it's direct. So I just want these words clear. Not everybody's a financial analyst, but I'm not happy with the way I see it set. I'd just like to see it. Let's get it real clear. We all get educated on this. Then we, the operators, everybody's got everything in front of them, and then we'll talk about what the real issues are. But I just don't feel comfortable a decision of this magnitude where we're going, and we don't feel that we're aligned on the numbers. And I just would like that first.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you down here.
Ask the staff, how long do you think it would take to work with the financial subcommittee on this?
We could hold a couple of meetings. We are obviously at the beginning of May at this point. We could have the item back, likely first meeting or second meeting in July before you.
Okay. So you'll be able to meet with the financial subcommittee and bring that back.
Okay.
Okay. All right. This is a matter for consideration, so you were looking for direction. Is that sufficient direction? Did you want a motion?
That's the consensus of the council. The other question was, did you wish us to work on the draft, creation of the draft RFP in parallel, or did you want to see the numbers first and then we'll work on the RFP subsequently?
Okay, the sense that I got from the council is to bring it back, work with the subcommittee first.
Very good.
And then bring it back once we've hashed out all the numbers and we've got some certainty behind those numbers as well.
We'll return to you in July.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your input tonight. Thank you.
What happened?
Power failure? Okay, here we go. All right. Okay. Okay, so thank you one and all. We're going to, excuse me, our
Meeting's not over yet.
Our meeting is still continuing. We still have some work to do.
Yeah.
So thank you. Or you can,
You can leave, but just
if you want to talk outside, you're more than welcome to. Head down to Beebs for a cup of coffee or something. Have a beer, and then we'll meet you down there. Okay, so on to matters initiated and council reports. So with that, Councilmember Coomber.
I have no committee reports.
You should have had a committee today.
What's that?
You should have had a committee today.
No committee. No committee today. No.
No ACTC PABCO?
No, that isn't me. That isn't me. I'm LAFTA.
No, but you're also PABCO. You're appointed to that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing. Okay, Councilmember Carling.
Yes, I've been out of commission a little bit over the last few weeks, so I haven't had the opportunity to go to many. But I did go to a Stop Waste meeting on the 26th. Joint meeting between the Waste Management Authority and the Source Reduction and Recycling Board. And that's it's been a real education for me to see what the county does with all the garbage that we all generate. So it's been a fun experience getting to know some people and learning how to make compost and so on and so forth. So it's been very good.
All right, Councilmember Warner.
A couple of things. When I went to a Livermore Cultural Arts Council meeting, and it was, I would say, standard business. Heard more about the educational opportunities at Las Positas, and again, they're, it's very interesting. I'd say that was the bulk of it. And then one of the things that made this suggestion, I'm going to get into it next on the Downtown Steering Committee, because that was the topic of the LCAC meeting, and that really we have Downtown Steering Committee, and the selection was done there were people who are twofold. One, people who have shown an interest in what's happening down there and have the ability to outreach. And so the question is, if we have these other committees out there that are represented on the Downtown Steering Committee, they themselves should be thinking about how best to outreach to the community to find out what's going on the downtown. So let me, as I said we would do, is we'd report out on these meetings under the reports section what we've been doing in the Downtown Steering Committee, and I'll cover the first two, and then fortunately I won't have to do that now that Councilmember Carling is back. So let me we've had two meetings on the Downtown Steering Committee, and the first thing is that it was really an onboarding. Was that meeting. We had introductions to who we were. We covered what the steering committee scope is, and that's basically it's to help formulate the outreach on what we do downtown, and we're holding that in the form of a special meeting workshop, which means that we focus on the agenda as opposed to public comment being general. We also reviewed the rules of order for the committee, of how we're going to conduct business. I just mentioned one of them. And then we also conducted the Brown Act training so that all the committee members understood what's involved in making sure that we really are open and that all business is conducted in front of the public. So that was the first meeting, basically. And we had a preliminary summary of what the future agenda topics might be. On the second meeting, which was April 27th, we introduced PlaceWorks and the facilitator, David Early, that we've chosen to help us work through this process. We affirmed the agenda for the future meetings. That was a first decision out of that meeting, and we also discussed the the various options for community outreach, how it could be done, and talked about the pros and cons. No decisions with respect to that, but just helped everybody understand that. So one of the important questions that we dealt with is how can people who want to understand what's going on be informed? So one of the things we fast-tracked was setting up a website that would hold the information, and I believe it's up and operating now. And it's yourlivermore.org is the how to get there, and that's, as I said, to share the committee information with the public, and actually with the other members of the council, right? So they're allowed to go see it too, and that's part of the reason for the update here, is because this is it's a public forum, and unlike the steering committee, this is videotaped, so people can kind of understand what's going on. I'll just say that the future meeting topics are the downtown financial overview. We're going to talk about parking, traffic, pedestrian circulation. Again, we'll be doing public outreach. We'll cover that, how to do outreach on those topics at all the meetings. We'll be talking about a hotel analysis, open space, retail, housing, and other uses. Then we'll get another financial report and alternatives. So basically we're stepping through this in a series of topics focused on in the meeting. We'll collect information as we go, and we'll then disseminate what we believe to be the facts. And we just heard earlier tonight, what is this or that? What we're trying to do in this committee is distill and collect the information and get alignment on it, so that we don't have, when we get to the final decision-making meeting, as much controversy as to what we believe to be true. So we're going to be stepping through a number of these things, and we'll see how we go. I'll just point out that the first two meetings ended on time after 2 hours. So now, as I hand it over, we'll hope that continues. So that's on the Downtown Steering Committee. One of the things under matters initiated, I mean, we heard a lot of talk about this accessible hangar or building or whatever. My request would be to follow up with what the mayor kind of alluded to, as was missing, is perhaps staff could work with the official representative and help them put together a more complete proposal, and so that we could have something at some point to talk about, so we could cover, just say more complete proposal, and you know what that entails.
Well, what they need to do is they need to come to the city. The city doesn't.
That's what I mean.
We don't reach out to them.
No.
They need to come to us with a project.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is tell them how to do it. I mean, just in other words.
Well, they're already working. They're working in the iGate space, so they're very closely aligned with the city.
No. What all I meant.
That's who's running this. They're the primary people.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I'm suggesting is that it was interesting, and there's certainly a lot of interest behind it, but that's not the way that we normally efficiently conduct business. Right. All I'm asking is let them know what the process is and get them prepared. I'm just telling them what they need to do, because this isn't what they need to do. Okay.
Jim Berry and Tom Manger are both Robot Garden. Yeah. So and you see that Tom is the one that's at least has the thing.
It sounded like something. Maybe you could mount the plane on the building. Who knows?
If it's to understand the plane on a jet on a stick, that took me a while to figure that out.
Oh, there's the.
No, I get it now.
Yeah, there's a Lear 24 down there.
Okay.
At the
Just put it on
displeasure of
the
the
building.
council's staff could reach out and work with proponents to so that they can actually provide a proposal for consideration if that's what the direction of the council
Or
is.
just tell them that there's a process to go through.
And tell them what what is it that they need to cover? Because the mayor said, this is great, but I'm missing da 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 da. Right? Just let them know what's missing.
Very good. We can do that. I'm getting 4 head nods, sort of. There we go. Okay.
Just a quick question, though. You mentioned LCAC. LCAC represents 30 cultural arts organizations, so they have a very wide net that they can cast. What types of outreach has LCAC proposed to do?
Well, they haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
So what I was just making the suggestion that that they should think about how to do that. That would help. And I think that as the representatives are present at the Downtown Steering Committee, that suggestions will be made, because it's not just LCAC, but all of the people in some way or another have connections. And so as part of this outreach, how will those connections be leveraged? But I'm also suggesting that those organizations themselves should be thinking about it. And just give you an example, an LCAC has member organizations that aren't exclusively in Livermore. I mean, they cover the East Bay, something like that. So do they think that, because I'm broader than Livermore, that I don't care? I think the question to them is, how do you market the thoughts here to that subset of your organization that is in Livermore?
Well, it's not just marketing the thoughts; it's how do you gather
collect
the
them. That's what
information from them.
Well, I'll just give you another example. Is that what we heard when we were selecting the firms for who could help us on the facilitation is, how do you do this outreach? And one of the things you do is have events at which kids perform, and then you got the parents, and then you can start talking to them, right? So that's the kind of thing. This group has a lot of events. So the question is, how do you just, at the events that are held in Livermore, do you put up kiosks and solicit the information so that they should know who their audience is and what kind of venues they have, and how would you best leverage those events to do this other things? That's what I meant.
To collect information.
To collect. I mean, how do you, given your event, what would be the best thing that would help get information from the people who are attending? The feedback. That's all. That's what I meant by market. Is how do you grab them and get their attention? So, I think it's a fascinating a problem, and I'm really happy that we formed this steering committee so that we can get the broad community input.
Very good. Okay, real quick. Wednesday I was at the Chamber Government Affairs Committee, and Darren Greenwood presented a program on water, this being Water Awareness Month, and so we had the kids out here earlier today. Cal Water and Zone 7 were both there as well, had some great insights on what's going on, and the Lake Oroville is going to be expensive. So far they're at $500 million, and we're responsible for whatever it costs. We're responsible for 2% of that. So Zone 7's up for about $10 million already. So it's going to be expensive. The May 5th, I was at the San Joaquin Regional Rail Committee and talking about. I got an update on AB 758 and what this connection between BART and the Tri-Valley and possibly the San Joaquin Valley may look like. They're talking both BART and diesel multiple units and electrical multiple units, so stay tuned on that. It was also Cal LAFCO had a meeting in Sacramento that I was a part of that was going over budgeting and outreach and what our lobbying efforts might look like, and conferences. Saturday was the Walk to Cure Arthritis. That was attended by probably about 400 people at Lifestyles RX. This morning was ACTC, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, the I-580 Express Lane Subcommittee, where we talked about so far it's generated about $7 million of funding that's going locally, and also talking about issuing another contract for services over the next 3 years. The Planning, Policy, and Legislative Committee gave us an update on some of the legislation that's coming forward. With that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting, but in honor and memory of Margot Kierkegaard, who passed away. She was a longtime community stalwart, artist, and just a really wonderful lady, and she will be greatly missed. My condolences to Arna Kierkegaard, but again, I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting in honor and memory of Margot. Thank you.